Well, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 59 of the Yorkshire Gamers Elite Big War Games podcast. And today, my guest is Pete Brown, who is the chap who does all the work on the moulds and the casting and everything at the Assault Group TAG. Probably best known for their 28mm Renaissance figures. I've got plenty of those in my collection, and other selections of Moderns, World War II. And fantasy, would you believe? So we're going to have a deep dive with Pete into his history and his hobby and his business, as we usually do. The previous episode with Joe Bilton about War Games Terrain is going really well, as you would expect. Lovely guy Joe, absolutely raising the level of War Games Terrain, and I have put that version of the podcast now onto YouTube with a selection of photographs of Joe's work. So if you haven't seen it, if you've not been and checked out his Twitter account, then have a look at the YouTubes and just look at some of the wonderful terrain that he makes and some of the fantastic tables that he puts on at Lard Days and shows throughout the country. Well worth checking out. They're absolutely superb. Last episode, I was talking about the method that I record the podcasts and me having to actually pay for it after 3.5 years. So I've signed up with a company called Podcastle, and I had used those before to record episodes, and it's about 150 quid for the year, plus 100 quid for the posting costs with Podbean. Sadly, Podbean don't do a PC recording version, so I can't top up there. So 250 quid for the year. It's it's not cheap, but I get an immense amount of enjoyment out of these podcasts myself, so I'm quite happy to stump that out. While I'm in my current employment, it's just not easy for me to obtain alternative incomes, so I'm not even going to look at Patreon or anything like that, or even a donation scheme. Maybe when I retire, whenever that happens, could be 6 months, could be a year, could be 3 years. I don't know yet. But so that's it. The future of the recording is paid for at least another year, and so you're gonna have to listen to me droning on about war games. I'm sure you don't mind. And one final thing before we go on to the interview today, and that regular listeners will probably remember I did a World Cup of historical war games rules last year, around about this time. Great success, 15,000 people, 15,000 votes were cast, and we ended up with the Two Fat Lardies and Chain of Command as the winner. Well, I decided to do another one, but not war games rules. I thought it's a little bit too soon after the previous one. So we have a World Cup of historical war games manufacturers on the go. And this is all happening on the Yorkshire Gamer page, as well as the Yorkshire Gamers Elite Big War Games Facebook group. So I've had to confine it to Facebook. I do apologise to people who aren't on Facebook, but I need it concentrated in one place. I've just completed the preliminary round for the manufacturers, and that had 4,500 votes. So to try and have that across multiple platforms, unfortunately I don't have the time to manage it. So it's all done on Facebook, although I do advertise it elsewhere. So if you're not part of it or you're not aware of it, then pop down to the Yorkshire Gamer Facebook page, and you'll see the first round proper occurring over the next few days. So, a bit of a long ramble. Apologies about that. I had a few things to let you know about. So, it's time to get relaxed, get those paintbrushes out, and just so now and listen to me and Pete talk about tag, wargaming, Renaissance, weird methods of selecting which wargame show you display your wares at. It's got it all. So, without further ado, here's the interview. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 59 of the Yorkshire Gamer podcast. And after speaking with Joe Bilton in the last episode about terrain, it's time to get back to some figure chat, and some 28mm figure chat at that. One of the joys of doing this podcast is speaking to guests and manufacturers that I want to speak to and whose figures I love and regularly push around my table. Today, we speak with the owner of TAG, also known as the Assault Group, who has been manufacturing 28mm white metal figures for the hobby for many, many years. If you haven't got at least one tag pipe block in your collection, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? It's always worth a chat to this. Yeah, exactly. It's always worth having a chat with this guy at a show, and he's made time to speak to us today and give a deep dive into the company and his wargaming life. So let's give a warm welcome to my latest guest, Pete Brown. Hello, Pete.
Hi again. It's a delight to be on the podcast. It really is. Listen to it. But as I work in the workshop, and it's fantastic. I say I tried to bribe you with tea bags to get on the show. Yeah. You wouldn't take them. I don't know what kind of high-minded individual you might be, but if you won't take a bribe, I don't know.
No, it's I'm very particular about who I have on the show, mate. So you're honoured to be on.
No, it's nice. It's nice to have the radio guests that you have. It's nice to listen to various people's opinions. As I say, I having it on almost like the radio in the background. It's kind of burbling along in its own formulaic way. It's kind of nice to hear those voices. It's very good. Very good. Enjoy.
Yeah. I think Sean Clark, who's obviously a regular on the Brews in the Vineyard, he's described it as War Games radio, and I think that's the way I love listening to people talking about the hobby. And I listen to other stuff as well that isn't necessarily what I do, but I just enjoy people geeking out and enjoying the game.
Whatever it is, if people are doing it with enthusiasm, then it'll carry along as much as it can do. And that's what comes through most, I think.
Yeah. Well, before you get too settled, what we do first is the 4-minute challenge.
Yeah.
And that's where you get to summarise or not. Some people fail abysmally at this, so we'll see how you get on. But it's basically your War Games history in 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
4 minutes. Now, don't worry if you don't get anything in. We'll try and we'll cover everything later on. This is just to get you warmed up and get. I can go and have a quick 4-minute kip now while you're chatting away to the audience.
Get the kettle on already. 4 minutes.
There's no beep or anything. I just hold the phone up like that when you get close.
I like your phone. That's very high tech. Click the button, young man. Let's do this.
We're off.
Okay. Well, I'm 57 almost. So that means I've been wargaming. Well, like everybody of our generation, I assume, the first thing that we remember is Airfix. That, Saturday afternoons on my grandma's floor with boxes of, everybody else went for the World War IIs, but I was much more the kind of Nottingham Robin Hood set and the astronaut set and stuff like that. So I think the first time you ever see miniatures, they're whatchamacallit, aren't they? They're Airfix. And in theory, I'd been given by an older boy one of those kind of Airfix play guides to World War II. So I was painting up all tanks and things. He's going to go and fetch it. Fantastic. That's the bunny. That's the bunny. That is inspirational stuff. And I was supposed to be painting up some tanks and reading the rules and things. When I bumped into some boys at school who were playing D&D.
Oh, yeah.
And at kind of 11, 12, I was D&D all over. We loved it. I mean, that kind of first flush of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, the Player's Handbook and the Mastermind and stuff is kind of... And I also saw my first metal miniatures at about 11 or so, 12, and Asgard Gnome and some Roll Half the Dwarfs out of the Collector's Series, which I remember to this day. I probably know where they are. But they kind of, until sort of D&D and spin-off games. We loved Combat 3000, which was a tabletop game. And Tabletop Gaming, of course, then opened in 1981 down the road from where I lived, within 10 minutes cycling, literally. And on leaving school, I started work there at Tabletop Games on the 30th of June, my 16th birthday, 1983. Wow. On my 16th birthday, I was like, you kids know nothing today, do you? And so I worked at Tabletop making 15 mils in the casting machine for 3 or 4 years. And eventually, a bloke named Tony Yates was getting some stuff made there. And he said they would get sort of using Tabletop as a mould maker. And the mould maker wasn't there. And so Tony says, go on, Pete, you can do it. Crack on. You can make this mould. I was like, I'm all right, okay. So nobody had ever been, had any confidence in me previously, but that was a bit of a surprise. So I made some molds for Tabletop and started to learn how to cut and things. And in 87, how quickly am I doing? In 87, I went to Games Workshop in Eastwood in their factory cutting molds.
40 seconds.
Gosh. You got fired, but no, I didn't get fired. I left Workshop and then I went to work for, in the 90s, I was working in making fantasy molds for Harlequin miniatures and alternative armies. And then in 1997, I went to Wargames Foundry for 3 years.
Wow.
Where 2.5 years. As the place was just kicking off. It was really, really kicking off at the end of the 90s. And I worked there 2 years, and then Brian, and then I was self-employed. And my mum, bless her, said, you should do what you do for yourself. You should get the machinery together. And that's what I did. So since 2000, been cutting, I'm done. Because in molds freelance, I'm running tag on the side.
Brilliant. Nice flourish at the end there. Nice flourish at the end, just as the bell was going off. But there's absolutely buckets loads there, mate, to talk about.
I mean, we could spend 2 hours talking about Tabletop, and I'd be delighted to do that, because to go into a place like that out of school was pretty special, really. Games Workshop were already starting to be big across the city. Well, they were out of Newark still when I started. But Bob had been around for 10 or 15 years on the Wargame circuit at that point. So he'd got all the stories and he'd seen it all start, and he knew everybody and everybody knew him. And consequently, I met so many people that I still know to this day, Tim with and whatever else. They've been, part of my life, my whole life. Yeah, it's really cool.
So you're based then in Nottingham, I guess, from the story of where you went through.
Yes, I was born in Arnold, which is a suburb abutted to the city. The actual city boundary is probably 150 yards from where I was born, but we are just on the outskirts. So, yeah, it's been amazing that Workshop have grown here since I've grown up. They were out at Newark until 82, 3 or something, and they were sort of separate, but the city itself has gone game mad, absolutely fantastically so, in the last, because of Games Workshop, since the 90s when they moved into Lenton, away from Eastwood. They've been, astronomical since that point, and that means that the kind of people in the city now are coming here because it's a centre for Games Workshop. The number of people that come into the city, and they're writers or artists and sculptors, whatever it is, even if they're only talented, shop people or accountants or whatever it is, Workshop brings them here and puts them in head office and milks them dry. Wow,
it's amazing. It's amazing when I do these shows and you see all the links between all the various companies and who's worked where and whatever. And we're the same age, mate. So are you
probably remember in some of the magazines years ago, you used to get a thing called the Rock Family Trees.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Rock Family Tree, the war game industry would be good, wouldn't it?
A War Games family tree would be very interesting. Just talking about TTG then, because that's one of the companies that I remember, and I remember we're talking. Is it Bob Connor or Bob O'Connor?
Yeah,
Bob Connor.
And Kate, which is she probably doesn't got any credit at all, but she was as equally part of TTG as Bob was. Probably not equally. Bob was fanatically dedicated to his company and to wargaming in general. He would work 4 days a week, and then he would get in on his van on a Friday and drive to a show on a Saturday, and then maybe even a Sunday as well. And then he would come back on a Monday and run round in his van to Workshop and Asgard and Skytrex and whoever else was in the city at the time. And then he would go to War Games Club on Monday night, and then he would start work again on Tuesday morning. And that kind of dedication, I think, sort of left a bit of an impact, really.
I remember his enthusiasm at shows and talking to him. I'm sure many people in the UK listening to this will have fond memories of going up to the stand and ordering some tanks or whatever it was you were into at that particular time.
Yeah, well, he was quite an irascible character. I mean, he
was
cigarettes, and people could smoke indoors at this point. So this was, not sure it did him any good in the long term. But that thing about he would buy in Ross and Skytrex stuff and then split it down into individuals, so you could buy single tanks. And I think that kind of used to wee off the people at Ross and Skytrex. But we used to sell loads and loads and loads. I mean, I remember the first salute we went to, when I was there. No, this is not true. Mark went to the first salute, but they did £1,000 on that one day, and time I think were 18p each. So that's an awful lot of tiny tanks with a man. So, and it wasn't just. I mean, the beautiful thing about tabletop was that they were perhaps the first one of those people that was selling everything you needed: trees, walls, dice, paint, brushes, scenery, everything. And when the game shop opened, they tried filling it with bits and bobs and tried being a model shop. But I think that the D&D boom was taking off, and they might as well just fill it full of, modules and Citadel Miniatures, of course, used to take a big part of the store, big part of the shop. We used to sell everything, and he knew everybody, and he would get, orders in from wherever it was across Ross, and say all these people, Nat War, and all sorts of things that you would, and then he could collate all these orders and send them out and deal with customers in that way. He was dedicated in the extreme.
And he brought out, didn't he? That TTG had some wonderful sets of rules. Maybe not wonderful by today's standards, but things like shock of impact and to the sound of the guns and Challenger and all these. You could go, I want this. I can have the figures. Can have the dice.
We're a publisher.
Yeah.
So his contacts with people around the country knew that he published rule sets for the people. And he was therefore getting lots of, all those fantastic pony wars and Wizard on a Time in the West. And of course, Shock of Impact was E&S Beck. And then, of course, Bruce was out of Liverpool doing Challenger and things.
Yeah, Bruce Tree Taylor, yeah.
And of course, people would send in their manuscripts and saying, would you publish these rules? I remember reading the very first edition of Hull Wargames Society's body count rules.
Ooh, now we're going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He handed me them over. We were away at a show, and he gave me the kind of proof to read overnight. And I read them, came back down. He says, "What do you think?" And I said, I don't think I like them. I can't understand where the enemy is." He said, "You know nothing. you know nothing. They're going to be brilliant." And he was right, and I was wrong. So
Yeah.
there's a more sense of. But he was a publisher, so the beautiful thing was that lots of different people would publish all these laws, and it wouldn't make any difference whether you wanted a Renaissance skirmish set, or you wanted a medieval skirmish set, or you wanted an ancient skirmish set. There would be 3 different sets of rules by 3 different people, and they would all be whether to your taste or not is another thing. And so I think, the rules themselves, I think we moved a long way. We've simplified things, and mechanisms have changed a lot since then. But I think that aspect of publishing lots of people's work is something that's gone out of the industry a bit, really.
Yeah, it was. I'm really glad we've had that little reminiscence about TTG, because they
started on the miniatures, because of course that was. I mean, I was 15 mils with my first love, really. I mean, we were. Say, I was playing D&D, and almost on one weekend, I think Warhammer was released, and Tertio, the 15 mil Renaissance release, and I can see me making my mind up and going, I don't really want all this Dungeons and Dragons rubbish anymore. I mean, the rest of the world went in the opposite direction and decided that Warhammer was going to be quite big. But I say 50 mils was where I was at for 4 or 5 years. We would play Napoleonics in 15 mil, Ancients in 15 mil, Renaissance in 15 mil, all kinds of things. Until Workshop, I didn't really have any 28 mil soldiers. It was all 15 mils. And of course, when D.D. Doodah came back in the 90s, I was all over that. I already had half the armies already ready for rebasing, and as long as you did a bit of work and whatever else, you're pretty getting in and playing relatively quickly. So, I liked D&D being something in the mid-90s at the time. Before they tinkered with the rules so many times that it became impossible to keep up, really. But, I used to enjoy that. I had a very good friend who would think nothing of having 6 or 8 people round a table 2 or 3 times a week to play Ancients or whatever. So,
it's brilliant.
And that was fantastic. It was one of those things where the best thing is you walk into a room and you haven't got to put it away again afterwards.
Yes, that's a good one. That's a good one. And then did you say then in your potted history that you went on to Games Workshop? So what sort of place in history were they at when you were there? I mean, they had that shop, didn't they? Was it Newark, the original shop?
Well, I never went to the Newark faction. The old workhouse or something it was called.
Yeah,
I think. And but in kind of 83, they moved to Eastwood, which is on the opposite side of Nottingham, on the east side. And it was a sort of rundown mining town. I think it probably still is. There's non-mining left at all anymore. And it was there, and I'd been at tabletop for 3 or 4 years. 4 years. Bob's heart wasn't really in the miniatures. He was always more of a gamer, more of a publisher, rule writer, and the miniatures side of things was kind of falling off. We'd acquired Asgard, and we were releasing new models for Asgard. I don't think we were doing any real favours to that old range. We were sure. And I was playing American football with some lads at Hina, who great friends, another family. But they, one of the blokes there was called Malcolm Luff, and he was head of, I don't know what, the accounting department at Workshop. He said, I'll get you a job if you want a job. Which I didn't really know whether I wanted the job or not. But
Yeah.
I did fancy a change after being at tabletop for 3 or 4 years, and it's obvious that Workshop had gone sort of beyond the wargaming industry at that point. They were on the way out of the stratosphere. So I went there as a mould cutter, which is a kind of, everything was white metal castings with black silicon rubber molds at that point. So they required quite a lot of molds to keep things going. On the day that I went there, the 12th of October, 1987, was the week after they had Games Day and released 40K.
Wow.
So as I arrive in the workshop, the place is a tip because everything's been taken out of the place to move down to Games Day. And the bloke says, as my charge hand says, we're going to take a while to get this sorted out today. Here's the latest copy of the rules. Have a read of that. And then again, in my ultimate wisdom, I thought, I don't really like these. They're a bit sick, aren't they? Crikey, they're not as good as Combat 3000. I think the boys have stepped back a bit. So once again, I managed to miss the pulse quite badly with that one. But they were absolutely on fire at that point. They were releasing not just sort of miniatures, but games at an alarming rate. I mean, I was there 2 years, 2 months, and 12 days, and if they released 24 games in that 2 years, I wouldn't surprise me. Games like Fury of Dracula, or Curse of the Moon's Tomb, or Adeptus Titanicus, or Hero Quest was some of the things that was going off in the background whilst I was there and was just about to be released. And all those brilliant, fantastic Realm of Chaos models that were all coming through at that one. Just some astonishing sculpts, just brilliant stuff. And they kind of had a back catalogue of stuff that was selling really, really well. As mold makers, we were tasked with making at least 6 production molds, 11-inch production molds a day, between 6 and 9 a day.
Wow.
And there were 5 or 6 of us doing that on a regular basis, 52 days in 52 weeks in a year. So we were producing hundreds, if not thousands, of rubber molds, and they would some of them would burn out in days. One particular mold for the regiments of renowned dwarves, Bookman's Dwarf Rangers, or whatever they were. We would make the basic dwarf mold in 6 batches of 5s and 6s, and they would last 3 months, and then they would be back again for another 5 or 6 mold. It was astonishing to see the Terminators. The Terminators were first out when I was written there, and everything would be cast in 18-inch high, foot by foot square, interlocking plastic tubs, like heavy-duty plastic tubs, and there'd be room for a foot of lead at the bottom of these things, and then a 6-inch kind of spacer with handles would be, and then you put the next one on top. These things would be 5 and 6 buckets high, and in 10s and 15 square feet of these of Terminator bodies, just the box for these things that were selling reasonably well. That's
So did they start plastic moulding when you were there, or did that come later on?
The sprues for the plastic Space Marines were released with the 40K box set on that weekend. So that was their first really successful go into plastics, I would have thought. They've done odds and sods. I mean, I remember when I was at tabletop, there's the wreck, whose name I won't mention for name dropping really badly. No, I don't. No, don't say it, Brian. Used to come around and try and sell us those horrible fighting fantasy plastics that they produced. They were 3 times the size that they should have been, and whatever else. Yeah. And they've done some kind of drastic plastic orcs and a dwarf or 2. But I don't think maybe the skeletons running were done well for them. I don't quite know. But that sprue or two sprues, two half sprues or whatever they were, of plastic Space Marines with the bits on were absolutely killer. They were, say, Airfix must have been selling a lot of plastic soldiers back in the day. I think that Workshop at that point probably started to realise that they could get close to those kind of numbers and exceed them by a long way.
Yeah, it's certainly a big sort of turning point in the hobby, isn't it? That flick there to go to the plastics for some things, and we'll talk a little bit about the plastic metal thing when we come to talk about tag. A bit later on. So you mentioned American football there. Did you used to play?
Oh yeah, I'm still involved. I'm a sucker for the Nottingham Caesars in the last few years. There's a fantastic gentleman there called Grant Lawless who is so inspiring a person. Talk about enthusiasm and dedication. The man's brilliant. And he's in recent years he's turned around the Nottingham Caesars to the point they're on the verge of becoming a Premier side for the first time since the 80s. I didn't play at Nottingham in the 80s, but I used to play at Hena, and it's a fantastic game. Even if you've ever played or you know anybody that's played, there's a role for everybody. I mean, it doesn't matter what your body size or gender or anything, how fit you are. We've got a place for you on an American football side, and we can make you fitter, better. It's a great game to play. It's a great game. And there's nothing quite like being amongst a team. Nottingham at the moment are fielding, and they're playing today, and in about another half an hour I would be there for yourself, Richard. But it's to be amongst a side of 60 people.
Yeah, it's a big team effort.
It's really something. It's difficult enough. I don't know whether you've played cricket or football or five-a-side or something. It's difficult enough keeping those 11-a-side games, maybe a bit of rugby. 15 men's difficult to organise. 60 is different again, and the coaching staff on ball. And it's great. It's great. I'm a big football fan. I love my football. But if I had to play, if I could turn back the clock and have one more game, I would be back on the American football field tomorrow.
Right. So did you have a specific position that you would play?
I started what they call wide receiver, which is very much a lightweight skinny bloke category. And then as time moved on, I moved into what they call a slot back or a slot receiver, which is a bit more of a technical position nearer the line, but on offense. And so you kind of have to be drilled and make sure you know everything. You're doing everything on a regular kind of way. And then at Hena, we were too small a side, really. The town was too small to support a real team. And so as numbers dwindled later in the season, I would be playing on defense as well as offense and special teams. And I was a young man, so throwing my body around was a delight. It was so much fun. And it's a good game. It's a good game. And you really have to play it to understand what's going off. It's like it's probably having 60 players around, but you can't all be on the field at once. So getting experience, what they call reps in America, getting reps is everything. You have to fight for them. You have to deserve them, and you have to. If you're going to get game day reps, you have to perform as well. So, it's a fantastic sport. I mean, I'm watching it online or on the television, whatever, and through the 80s and 90s, it was great. But playing is such a different thing.
It's a sport that I missed out on. I lived at university. One of the guys who lived in our house was a cornerback for the Leeds University team.
All right.
But I was playing football at quite a high level then, and I just couldn't risk the injuries because he'd come in every week and his neck would be in a brace. So I'd look at it and go, no, better undo that.
Yeah, right.
I didn't get a lot of money, but I got 20 quid or something for playing on a weekend. So
really?
it was it was a nice little boost to the student income.
Yeah, no,
so I never dared risk it. But I love the game. I love American football. I remember when it came on Channel 4 in the early 80s and, learning all the rules and everything. So, yeah, I wish I had played, but it was just a bit too risky in those early days for me.
And I mean, a lot of lads would, and it was quite big in the 80s, obviously, that the Budweiser people were pumping money into it. And that meant that it was attracting players from outside of what you'd normally expect. And people that would perhaps be earning a little bit of a living, maybe playing rugby league or low-level rugby league or something like that, were drifting into the sport. And those people were, I was fit and whatever else, but those people were monsters. And at the top level in the 80s, maybe the training and everything's well on where we are today, but in terms of the athletes, you say about university, your friend playing at university. The university game in this country now is massive. Nottingham and Nottingham Trent University have 2 teams each, and one of them has a women's team as well, I think. So obviously, the kind of money in universities is beyond belief. We're on the Nottingham University campus, and the money that's pumped into that place is just astonishing. No wonder they're all achieved in such an amazing way, because they're nurtured, fantastic facilities, and even this kind of they do it as a social aspect. It's a kind of sports and clubs aspect. Lots of young people would play junior football in this country and then keep it going through university, and then people like Grant and people at the Caesars work really hard to try and drag them into the adult game. So, it is like being part of a big family. It is part of being like a really big family. It's special.
Brilliant. Well, our American listeners will have been surprised, and that was unexpected for them. A bit of a chat about American football.
I'm sure I sound like a complete damage.
Well,
anything.
we covered something we haven't covered before, which is a good one.
Sure.
So we're going to talk about tag later on, but what about yourself as a gamer, Pete? Have you actually getting figures on the table and playing? Is that something you get much time to do?
Of late, for the last 20 years, I would be a drop-in gamer at anybody that offered me a game, quite frankly.
Right, okay.
I do love the game. The point of what I do, making wargame soldiers, is gaming. They are, beautifully painted ones are lovely, nice display models and dioramas and people that do that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's great too. But they're meant to be gaming, I think. They're meant to be, put on the table and dice rolled around them and people point and stare and laugh and cross or whatever it matters. They're meant to be games. So, unfortunately, whilst I'm working all day moulding and doing whatever else to tag, the thought of coming home and painting, it's just like, I have no way I can do it. I just can't detach myself enough from what's in front of me, from my work, to be able to do, So if I wanted, I don't paint, but if I wanted to, I would. So I've been a drop-in gamer at wherever. And then about 18 months ago, I was standing at the British Historical Games BritCon show in Nottingham. And a man who I've known for a long time, Tim Whitworth, who I knew from
Tim,
yeah. Well, Tim is a man you should have on this show, because
he's on my list. He's not paid me enough money yet, though.
he likes his tea bags, but I think he's on the decaffeinator at the moment.
Yeah,
not good. But Tim's seen some big games in his time and put on some big games in his time. And his group regularly game on a Friday afternoon. And he saw me, he said, "Hello, Peter, how are you doing?" And I went, "Hey, Tim, thank you very much." He said, "Are you gaming much at the moment?" No, I'm going, "Oh, no, I wish I wasn't." He goes, "Look, Roy's coming past your way. Here's his number. Text him. He'll ring you. You can play with us." And so over the it's been amazing. And they play absolutely everything. I mean, I wouldn't dream of playing a World War II game. It's not what I'm interested in. But if Roy's going to drive me out there and Tim's going to sit me in front of a load of soldiers, I'll roll some dice and enjoy myself. You know, yeah, it seems like such hard work. So yeah, I've of late I've sort of been invited to Eagles and Lions, and it's been a pleasure. Just that, so the folks there, pretty much all of them, not all of them, 2/3 of them, I've known on and off around the circuit since tabletop games in the 80s, and I kind of occasionally have to go into places and go, I do hope I wasn't too much of a dick in my earlier years, and I can these people won't think too badly of me. But no, they've been welcoming and brilliant, and they've got all sorts of things planned. I mean, Tim's big on the 3D prints. He's got a mate of theirs that's doing. They did a game recently at Partisan Aztecs.
The Aztec game, yeah.
Which correct me if I'm wrong, but I think every single miniature on that table was a 3D print.
Wow. Okay.
Which is quite impressive in the sense that it's not a quick thing. I mean, they do print, you know, but they don't do it quickly, do they? So,
no.
And then they have to paint the damn things. You know, I go, you know, perhaps once a month or perhaps less than that. And they'll say, and they painted this many regiments this week, and that many regiments painted and based. That's a machine. And yeah, so that's my gaming at the moment. If anybody ever invites me, like saying yes, and I do, I'll be having get involved in a game if I can. But my regular squeeze, so to speak, is Eagles and Lions, and it's great to be one of that person.
Well, I didn't know you were part of that group, so there we go. I've learned something today. But look, they do lovely games, and like you say, the collection of figures that's available there is absolutely amazing.
Oh my! Yeah, I mean Tim would tell these stories better than I could, but you know. But he from what I gather, he used to sort of volley Old Glory for bulk discounts as if he was a trader or whatever, and they would get thousands of castings from Old Glory, and they would be putting on these games at Derby, which were fast things. Some of the biggest games I saw, I remember, which is Blenheim. It might be Blenheim, one of the big Marlborough games that they did in the early 80s, and I had never seen. We were Napoleonic freaks. We were playing horse and musket. We were playing Napoleonic. So to see the tactics of a century previous laid out in such scope, I mean, they must have had 18 ball feet worth of table at the time. And you know, I was a good deal smaller, so that was impressive. Yeah, I've tended to sort of fun to say they've got a lot of miniatures between them.
Yeah. So for gaming, what would your periods of choice be then? If you said, you know, you're not that keen on World War II, but what would you know, if you said, I'm going to put a game on, what would you go for?
Quite honestly, I would play anything. I mean, the love of my life has been Renaissance gaming, right? I mean, that's what Tag do. That's what I'm interested in. That's where I've spent all my life researching and reading and looking at whatever else I can find. And quite frankly, if you were to say, I'll put on the perfect game tomorrow, it would probably come from that 16th century period. But I haven't, since the 80s and 15mm, I haven't really played Renaissance gaming at all in that time. I do Ancients. As I say, we were playing Shot of Impact because of tabletop, and then DBA. Sorry, I'll play a lot of 15mm Ancients and whatever else. I'm a lot less interested in gaming once the guns can hit the things that they're aiming at.
Yes.
Napoleonic, great. I play Franco-Prussian War. I used to love Franco-Prussian War. It's strangely idiosyncratic war with, and everybody's got a different something, haven't they? They're all trained differently. They're all equipped differently. The artillery's all different. The Franco-Prussian War is quite interesting, but it's the last huzzah of that sort of gallantry. Probably the last time the Cardassians will charge across the battlefield. When we gather to do things in 1914, it's all going to get a bit nasty, isn't it? And I'm less interested after that. So Napoleonic, we played a lot of Napoleonic. I used to love Napoleonic. I used to play Prussians. I don't know what it was. I was a sucker for the Prussian army. And if I hadn't got, I don't know, whatever it was, 15 battalions of raw line infantry behind me, I was, I didn't know what I was doing. All these people would rock up with, their veteran French and their veteran British and stuff, and they were destroying me rapidly. I was a Prussian player through and through. And I used to like the old Napoleonics. But yeah, my perfect game would probably be somewhere in that Renaissance period. But anyway, it's good as long as the rules are balanced and the miniatures look nice and the train's been thought about. Decent.
And you don't have to tidy up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds self-centered when you say it like that, doesn't it?
There is a joy to that, though, Pete. I'm one of the, there's different characters in wargaming, and I'm one of those who likes to put the games on. And there are times when I'm putting games away where I'm thinking, bloody hell, I wish I didn't have to do this. So I think
I first came across you on a PHP website forum, and where you used to post as Yarkshire Gamer. And you would show pictures of these huge games that were taking place in what looked like a conservatory or back dining room or something. And I could get the impression that, no, I didn't want to put those away either. I wouldn't have mind dropping in for one or two of those, but they were... you must have biceps like, I don't know, an all-in wrestler for...
Yeah. Saves on gym membership.
I don't need
to pay anything. That's the problem with these plastic figures. You don't get any training.
True.
You lift a box of 28mm metals, you're getting muscles.
Yeah, mates of mine used to have an Asgard Norman army in 28mm, and I think it came in a couple of those old kind of tool cases that were steel or aluminium, and basically, you had to have help carrying them up the stairs. He didn't want to take them out of the house, certainly.
Those toolkit, that's brought back a memory. Those tool cases were so heavy to start with, and then you'd fill them with metal figures.
Lead, of course you did. And what we also used to do was fill in the bottom with extra lead that you were supposed to be painting later. So you carry this thing around that was like, I don't know, 10 kilos at the end of your arm. But I don't think Tim does move stuff around now. I was going to say, I don't think Tim moves a great deal of stuff around. He probably does. They were meant to be moved to shows. He was always taking them out somewhere. So it is possible to do. I mean, most everybody, not myself, has a car these days, don't they?
It's just those memories there with those huge metal boxes.
The metal boxes.
Even plumbers and chippies and that sort of stuff have plastic. So we're going around with these huge metal trays full of metal figures. I'm surprised. There must be a number of torn muscle stories out there amongst wargamers of our age. There must be.
It's been a long journey, I feel, lightening the whole exercise. People do move things around. Obviously, every one of those shows you go to, there's some idiot with, I don't know, a navy that they've painted. and they want to get it out on a table that's, I don't know, 24 feet long or whatever it was. I saw you with it. Salute.
32 feet long.
32 feet.
32 feet.
You need telephones to talk to each other down the other end of the table at 32 feet, don't you?
You do. I'll just go back to a story that Simon Hall and Meg told us a long time ago on the show, where they had a massive table and they actually had the commanders, the Russian commander and the German commander, it was like a World War II Eastern Front, in a separate room with a telephone.
Wow.
So they would ring through and give them updates, and then if they occasionally they would just randomly cut the phone off.
Very good. Very good.
Very good.
Very good. I've seen that on sort of Kriegspiel style with separate commanders. Yeah. Okay, so disrupting the command chain can lead to interesting games. We have it, I mean, most of the time when we play war games, there's nothing like a real command chain at all.
No.
It's just the three of you standing over the board going, what do you want me to attack here or not? Because I'm getting shot at, you know. So it's, you know, anything that can kind of mixes that up. I'm sure it depends on how much one wants to enjoy playing the model in front of you and how much one wants to model warfare or the situations are in.
Yeah, so that's a good one. We'll finish this section off as we always do with our Venn diagram of wargaming, and that's just breaking down your hobby into different sections because we all come at it from a different angle. So the four things are wargamer, painter, collector, historian. Ooh. So which bits of those are the most important to you and how does it all fit together?
If I can change the title to amateur historian.
Amateur, yes, that's no problems.
Because I wouldn't profess to be trained. Those people.
Well, some of the professional historian books I've read are not particularly good. So.
Easy now. Anything like that is there, and they've got an opinion too. Amateur historian, very high on the list. Wargamer is aspirational, and of late has been an actual thing. Painter, not at all. I haven't. Whilst I was at Wargames Foundry, I painted 25 models in 2 years, and that was good going for me.
Yeah.
The last thing I painted in any large amount was a Viking army for DBA.
No.
Well, I'll tell you what it was. It was in 1998 because I was sitting at home with my son, and he would wake up at 5 a.m. when he was very young, and I'd feed him. And then I would sit for 2 hours and paint, or 3 hours and paint, and then he would wake up again and want feeding 3 hours later. So I knew I'd got 3 hours of solid painting time. And in kind of 9 months, I was working part time and being a stay-at-home dad. That was the most miniatures I painted ever. Because I was at home and I knew I got a regular routine, and I was out of work, and that thing about being in work and not painting, it's killer. I don't paint at all. I'm very bad, and my tastes are so much higher than my actual ability.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And having been around the old Fothers Forum years ago, I met a lot of very good painters.
There's some cracking painters on there.
Yeah, Sean Watson, John Tractor, Paul Sanderson, and Roy Duffy, Ben Brad. Others, they're all, and I haven't paid all of those to pay a unit, but a good number of them. If I want a unit painting, I get somebody good to do it, because otherwise
yes.
You know, when people paint a post in the gallery, a tag,
yes,
I say, don't worry that it's not very good, because enthusiasm trumps ability. Yeah. Something gotten with enthusiasm, love is better than something brilliant, because brilliant can be achieved. Enthusiasm and something else. So it's like I really expect that I should do something, be great, and cherish my own work. I don't. I'm sorry, not very good at it. And out and be other people. Collector is an interesting thing. I would have and still have lots of 15 mil war games armies and other things that I'll never throw away. Lots and lots of great models that I've had over the years. Stuff that people have painted for me and given me and gifts and things. But I don't collect. I don't have to have. That's not true. If it comes to army, when it comes to an army list, if you give me an army list, I have to have everything to the list max. Yeah, that's
just in case.
That's rational, isn't it? That's
just in case you need it.
Yeah, no problem there.
But
if you were to say to me, what is Mucoin? My mate Dave Lee, he was a big Workshop Orcs and Goblins fanatic, and he would collect Workshop Orcs and Goblins. And if he thought there was one that he was missing or whatever, or there was a different one or a variety that he hadn't seen before, he would hunt them down and, that kind of collecting. I don't do. I'm not that kind of collected gene, my mate Steve always calls it. I'm not really the hunter. I'm not really the gatherer. Perhaps more just the sort of experience effective. So the wargamer, he's an amateur historian to the nth degree, to studying. So a painter, I'm sorry, can't help you. Collector, to an army list, that's normal. That's perfectly fine, isn't it?
Yeah,
You've said that, Ken.
It is.
You give me validation there, I feel.
What you can say in wargaming when it comes to collector is that there's always someone worse than you.
More of a collector.
More of a collector, yes.
I mean, because that's kind of judgmental of you, really, isn't it? I mean, are you a collector?
Me, judgmental. Well, I am. A long time ago, I was asked in an interview how many figures I had, and I had no idea.
Yeah, I bet.
So I'm up in the games room now. You can see all display cabinets and stuff behind me.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll potter around up here with the aid of a little bit of malt whiskey just to keep me going. And I think I had one too many one night because I actually started counting them.
Go on.
So I now know that I've got 30,000 figures.
Wow. What, painted?
Painted. That's not included unpainted. Unpainted are not even thought of. So I'm now at a stage where I'm happy with that as a figure. So when I paint new stuff, some of the old stuff goes.
Oh, right. Okay. I recently taken to playing guitar last 10 years and buying guitars as well. And there's this thing amongst guitar collectors where they reach a point where they think that they've got enough and they get rid of some. They call it slimming the herd, calling the herd.
Yes.
Thinning the herd. And then once they've got, 15 of the same Stratocaster, they think they ought to sell one before they buy another one.
Yes. I'm probably in that zone.
Okay, so I don't think it's collecting if you're using them. If you get them out on the table, and that's not collecting, is it? Because they've got a purpose.
Really?
I mean, my mate, watching me call it Clark, he spent a lifetime doing these collecting trading cards. Like Magic the Gathering, but there was no game attached to the back of them. We were just collecting Star Wars images or Lord of the Rings images or bits of Dorothy's press from, and it was a bit kind of strange. And these people would kind of put them in sleeves and then in binders and then on shelves and then.
Yeah, that's
more
like a pure collecting, isn't it?
It is collecting, and I said that kind of army list tipper that I definitely am. I can see applies to if you've got. I don't know what it is. I'm sure we're going to get to tea at some point. But they go on collectible cards.
Yes,
if there were 32 in the back, did I have to have all the dinosaurs? Or all the cars, or probably if you did some kind of collecting. I'm not happy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a collector. I'm not a collector, really.
Yeah, that's it's a good therapy session for many people out there. That particular,
whatever
chat there.
floats their boat. I mean, as you say, it's a kind of Venn diagram, isn't it?
Yeah,
Why must we all meet in the middle with Wargame? Now?
exactly. That's the goal. Well, that's a lovely short introduction of nearly an hour.
Sure, but an hour.
So we'll be back, ladies and gentlemen, in a minute for our usual big game chat. Part 2 is always our little big game chat, where this podcast was always designed to kind of bring back a little bit of love for the bigger game. So, Pete, well, first question I ask everyone is, how do you define a game? What does a big game mean to you?
Big game is probably something. A normal size war game used to be 1-on-1 or maybe 2-on-2 on a 6 or 8 foot by 4 foot table over 3 hours. And that would be Nottingham War Games Club on a Monday night, or Chris's in the 90s playing BB, and that would be normal.
Yes.
Maybe a couple of 300 minis on the table, 15 mil. That's a normal game. So a big game is something that's bigger than that. And that would often mean more time. And sometimes clubs would hire a room on a Sunday. We'd go for 6 hours on a Sunday rather than, or bigger in terms of scale. And you're talking, 4 people, 6 people, 8 people over larger times. And even in, you can have a big game with Bacchus' 6 mil stuff. I've seen some of their 6 mil games that are, again, 24 feet long or something, and you look at it and you can't deny it's a big game. Yeah, it's just done in a tiny scale.
Yeah, exactly.
A big game. And you can't. If it takes more than an hour to put it away,
that's a good definition. I like that.
That's going to be a big game, isn't it?
Yeah, I've not had a how long it takes to put away as a big game definition yet, but that's a good one.
I think that's true. I mean, those Bacchus games are definitely big, and it probably takes them a couple of hours to get them out and put them away. And they're done in a different scale, but they're big games. And I suppose the first really, going from school to tabletop and on to Nottingham's War Games Club, it's a very sort of young age, 15, 16. We were playing essentially competition war games, 3 hours, 1-on-1, from the age of whatever. But when I was 17, I went to the War Games Holiday Centre for the first time.
Wow. Another War Games Holiday Centre veteran.
I'll never forget walking into that room. It's like, and the table was 27, there were 2 27 feet by 6 feet tables with a 2 foot gap down the middle of it. It would all turn into one table if you wanted. And I think on that first week, we maybe played 4 games. We were right on Monday and played on in for a bit of a chin wag on the Monday night. We went on the Tuesday, Wednesday, and I think we played American Civil War on the first day, using Peter Yoder's collection, inches, 1,000 of them. And then on the second day, we played a Sedan type game that was based on Tony Wars.
Sands of Sedan.
That's how it's called.
Yeah.
Congratulations. And that was really fun. I remember a heroic last stand to save the women and children by my camel corps dying to a man. It was fantastic. And then on the Thursday, Friday, we played Leipzig, which just sounds like a dream now. Well, it's got 5 armies.
Yeah.
Yeah. and the Russian guards there and the French old guards there, and it was huge. It was just massive. And I remember on the first day of the first, definitely going to split the game over 2 days, because that battle itself is sport over 3 or 2 or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we were going to split it 2 days, and the Peter Gilder said to the French commander, "Well, this is your French order of battle. Right, these should be on the table. You should start. But if you want to call on the reserves, you can call on the reserves at any point. And this is reserve 1, and this is reserve 2. It's the guard." And these lads just went, "Let's get the guard out. Go on, more in one. Let's commit to the guard. This is the whole. We've got the whole thing. We've got 4 battalions of guards, and we've got all the cavalry and everything else. And so these lads just basically got the Imperial Guard out on a Thursday morning, and he played really badly, and probably lost the Allies that could deal in the game. I was Prussians again. I'm going to be able to fight very well. But these lads got the Imperial Guard out, and just some of those models were classics at the time. I didn't realise. I was whatever age I was, 17, but he had 10 or 15 years at that point in TF1s, and they were fantastic. And there's nothing quite like seeing whatever it is, 4, 8, 12 regiments of cuirassiers or something being deployed in a go. Yeah, that's a big game, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So was when you were up there, was it Peter still in charge, or had Mike and Jerry got it?
No, Peter Gill was in charge. The story is that as I started working tabletop, May, June of 83, Duncan McFarland came in with the first 2 issues of Wargames Illustrated that he had printed at Peter Gilder's expense, as far as I could work out. Peter Gilder obviously helped a great deal to get them printed. And Duncan dumped them on the desk at tabletop, and Bob said, "Make sure everybody that comes in walks away with one of these." So we were upselling the Wargames Illustrated. And it didn't take much because people wanted to buy them. It was very neat to sell. But in the back of the magazine, or amongst all those great pictures, those French Carabiniers and whatever else, Lanchenecks and gendarmes and stuff, it was an advert for the Wargames Holiday Centre, and me and my bet buddy Mark booked to go. And I would say that if it was June when I was 84 or something, when I was 17 or that, I went 2 years running, and Peter ran it, and he did that kind of course where he showed you how to paint his horses and things for an hour, and I lapped it up. I remember him saying, "So are you casting miniatures?" Yeah, I work at the tabletop games and casting 15 mils. No money in it. Never make any money out of 15 mils. Handling charges as much as it is for a 28mm. You might as well go 20. And I'm like, I'm sure you get much more than I do, and I'm out of a job on Monday morning. But he definitely was the brand man of the wargame industry at that point, I feel. It was fantastic, yes. And then I went back the year after, and I played World War II in 20mm, which I wasn't interested in. The second day, George Gush was there the same week. George Gush.
Oh wow!
Yes, he completely concisely. And he said, so the second day, we played. We got all those Italian war miniatures out, and we played Italians with the gendarmes. And George didn't want to play, and said, "Well, because just what rules should we use?" And they said, "Make your own rules up. Where you go?" And okay, so we played Grand Manor basically, with with all those Landschnecks and things. And again, I think I played Leipzig on the last 2 days. I didn't do very well, so I don't learn. Yeah.
We've had lots of people on the show who went to the holiday centre, and they all say that walking through the door and seeing those tables and all those amazing figures is just something that stayed forever.
I mean, I did spend hours just wandering backwards and forwards looking at all the miniatures, just thousands of beautifully painted. And it was, he only got so many battles, I feel, at the time. But he had got everything he needed. So if you were to say to him, Gettysburg, you just pull them out in drawers and pop them on the table. From 2 skinny lads that were using the first Napoleonics we had called Conegavers that were airfix plastic 20 mils that he converted himself. And we would be playing with, I don't know, 40 plastic airfix figures aside at the age of 15, 16 or 17. And then to walk into that was just astonishing. It's inspirational stuff. That's the point of a big game, isn't it? A big games to inspire people to.
It was to me. It was, I've told the story many times about seeing that massive Napoleonic game that the Sods put on at a show, and that inspired me. And it seems to sometimes these days it seems to do the opposite. It's I can't do that. Whereas it inspired me to push on and realise that I wasn't going to be able to do it in 10 minutes, but that's what I wanted to aim towards.
Nothing good comes easy, does it? Nothing great is simple or easily achieved. Whatever it is, whatever you're going to devote yourself to as part of your hobby, whether it's I play guitar or 10,000 hours of practice for that, you've got to put. If you don't put the mileage into whatever 18 however many thousand units you've got, or even if it's say basing and organising rooms. Yeah, and then it all mounts up in the moment. Nothing you can quickly and easily. But yeah, to be inspired to those big games, I think. Are you put off by? I don't really understand the talking it down. I will say if you see it, eventually you can achieve it, I think.
Yeah, and I think there's a massive sense of achievement for me. Getting a big collection on a table and just going, I did all that. It works for me. Whereas the smaller games, I don't have that sense of achievement because I'll paint 10 figures in a couple of days, and if that's all I need for the game, then I'm deflated. I've got nothing more to aim towards. So with yourself, then, just we'll talk about tag at the end of the show. But as a manufacturer, what I can't understand is, why people bring out these small games, because from your point of view as a business person, surely it's better for you to sell something that needs 300 or 400 figures rather than 10. Or where do you sit on that kind of discussion?
As a business.
Or individually, wherever you want to come from.
There's kind of 2 extremes going off here, isn't there? Mark Farr and Bill Thornhill futsal games, though that sort of gangs of Rome, yeah. Now, I looked at it, and you can play it with a couple of dozen people. I suppose the thought is that they're more likely to be able to sell you 24 miniatures and you think that you're going to paint them and get them on the table rather than, I don't know, Tag trying to sell you a 30 years more army or something that's got 200, 250 castings in it or something. There might be 10 times the number of gamers that can paint 24 that can paint 250. I don't know if that's the case or not. I think a lot of the smaller games, I don't know, Osprey do small games, don't they? Those Osprey, whatever they're called, Outpost War Games stuff, are whatever, 20, 36 to 60 models. And I suppose they're going to get as close as they're going to get to selling you those exact 60 models before they move on to the next game. And they're going to sell you another 60 models. Yeah?
Maybe.
No,
Yeah.
no, I don't know.
Yeah, it's I think to have you, whatever you do, you're going to promote a game or a new set of figures or whatever, and that probably costs the same whatever you're going to do. I just can't. What I struggle to see is why some manufacturers kind of cut it off, where the other games have room to expand in it. It might be like 30 figures to start, but then you go to 90, then you go to, there's room to expand. Once you've spent your advertising dollar and you've got people in, and then to go, right, that's it. Gangs of Barnsley's done.
I don't know. I suppose if you're doing lots of smaller games, I'm playing games. I don't really have a dog in the fight. If you're doing lots of small games, you've got more chance of getting lots of different people in. Whereas if I do one thing and you don't like it, you're never going to be that.
Yeah, true. True. It's an interesting balance, isn't it? It's an interesting balance.
Balance is a good thing. By its nature, I think those Osprey things are introductory level. They are, the mechanisms themselves are simplistic. The ideas and the changes between any one or more of the rule sets are minimal. They want to sell you off. I mean, they're not really selling you miniatures. I mean, they're saying use your own miniatures or get someone for hours sort of there. And they're on to the next thing. We always say spin the wheel, as if like a wheel of fortune. You give it a great big 28 mil orcs dressed as Greeks. Yeah. Write the rules. And it might be a great game. And it could be fun. And, the shops are going to take two dozen copies. Maybe it could be Smiths will take 2 dozen copies. Maybe it's all. I don't know. That sort of 3-hour, highly intensive, lot of effort put into it. As you say, you can't do that. You can't put a war game on with your own army. Unless you put the hours in, you've got to paint 250 models. You've got to, buy some terrain. You've got to learn the rules. You've got to work out how your army list works. This is all effort that needs to go in. And maybe you get more people into your game if the barrier, if the hurdle isn't quite so high. Yeah. And okay, the Osprey ones are very good at is selling you the next one that's going to come along. They're going to give it a little bit of a twist. And hey, we're not doing 28 mil Greek orcs. We're doing Persian elves. They'll be great. Fantastic. Let's go. So these things, and to an extent, there's a sort of hits factory aspect to them. If you don't like this one, next one along might be better and might enjoy that one as well. Whereas, say, if you don't like what Gripping Beast did, which is essentially 20, and lots of people do, until hundreds of miniatures, thousands of miniatures. If you don't like 28 mil Dark Age miniatures, you'll never look at Gripping Beast ever again.
No, it's an interesting discussion, that one. But I certainly think Tag would be happy if the latest mega set of rules was 28 mil Renaissance.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've kind of got to, at this point, to realise that 28 mil, but Renaissance in itself is a fairly niche within a niche.
Right, well, it's always a little short chat there on big games. We had quite an interesting discussion there on big and small and advertising and stuff, so that was quite nice. So we'll move on now to our features section, and we'll have a bit of a quiz and Desert Island Wargame, etc.
Yeah, I'm here for.
Well, it's part 3, and everyone's favourite. It's the Yorkshire Gamer quiz, and the usual disclaimer: we're not meant to upset anyone with this. This is our personal view, and we haven't had any complaints for a while, so we're doing all right. We're doing all right. We're doing all right.
Crossed then, huh?
So it's a set of 20 questions, Pete. I think you've heard them all before.
Yes.
And they're either yes or no or a straightforward answer. Massive regional bias of which you're already aware of.
Yes.
And you'll be the second person to do the new what question number is it? Question 14 is new from last episode, so you'll be the second person to have a go at that one.
Well, that will come up in fine then. Go.
So, question 1, go big or go home?
Big.
Big. Of course. Now, without
home, if the choice is going home, definitely go big.
Okay. Or go home before you have to tidy up.
Go home, I want to tidy up. Go home.
Go home. Question 2. Now, you don't do a lot of painting, so this might be interesting for you. Contrast paints, are they great or a gimmick?
I've never used them. I would hate to offer an opinion. My suggestion is that they're probably a gimmick.
Oh, very good, very good. Always good to get the right answer on this show, whether it's so again we're on painted again. So question 3, paintbrushes, you go all posh and southern and expensive Winsor and Newton, or are you Yorkshire made Pro Art?
Oh, well, I don't think Pro Art were a thing when I did paint, so Winsor and Newton used to be the only thing. And I don't know about contrast paints, but I used to love Winsor and Newton inks as well.
Oh, they were the thing. Nut brown, deep brown. Oh, fantastic! Yeah, they were the brilliant brown. Yeah, my friend Carl Rowland. He was at art college at the time.
Right.
And he would come back with all these wonderful techniques he'd learned at art college, like washes and all this sort of stuff, and inking and panel lining that he'd done at college. And we were just amazed. The sort of thing that you would see in a YouTube video these days. You had to know somebody at art college to get these new techniques. So, yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. Question 4 then. 96 figures. Is that an army or a unit of pike?
Yes, it is.
Or a small unit of pike?
Yes, it is. If you've got it and it's an army, it's an army. If it's just a unit, it's just a unit. If you've got it, play with it. I don't care how big it is. Use it.
Awesome. We have question 5. We've kind of covered this a little bit. 6x4 table, a big game or a small game?
That's a standard, isn't it?
Standard. That's what I said, average, when I first started this. It's what everyone would play as an average. War game standard. Excellent.
Definitely.
Question 6. You're organising a game. Would you like a points-based army or an historical order of battle?
Historical order of battle. Absolutely. I hate points. Never run.
I very rarely meet people who do like points. It's obviously a different section of the hobby that doesn't have a Venn diagram bit in the middle.
I've kind of been drawing up lists for Renaissance games, and the idea is that people will just roll dice, and that's what you get.
Yes.
This in the period I deal with, 16th and early 17th century, commanders would get what turned up. If they were lucky, it would be good, and if not, no. So the idea of being able to super choice yourself the absolute perfect army with, down to nth number of points, and it lead to an equal, whatever equal is, game.
Yeah.
I disagree in time.
Yeah, there's an Italian Wars campaign set that I've got from Real Time War Games. I don't know if you've heard of them. And they have a really interesting mechanic in where you hire a condottieri to fight for your city-state or army or whatever you're going to do, and they turn up and you pay so much out of your treasury, and that buys you 5 cards or whatever, and you randomly draw the 5 units that this condottieri turns up with. So you can imagine yourself on the battlefield. Oh, right, I've paid for Maurizio to come, and he's going to be over there in a couple of minutes. I've got no idea what he's going to turn up with, and he rolls up with whatever the cards you draw. So I really like that as nice.
3 units of ill-disciplined Italian fought 1 Elmetti and some crossbowmen.
Exactly.
And you think, what am I going to do with those?
Yeah. Or he turns up with 5 units of familiar ducal armoured knights, and it's like,
I'm not a great fan of cards in basic wargaming, but I do like the idea of randomness.
I think for random events and random generation, I think cards are really, really good. I enjoy them in that aspect if they're done right. Right, we're surprisingly we're drifting off topic.
Always.
Question 7. Painted again, mate. But would you use a wet palette or an old bit of MDF to mix your paint?
Well, as I have no idea what a wet palette actually is,
Don't think anyone does.
I'm going to plead ignorance. If a piece of MDF will do the job, and I've only got the MDF, I'm going to go MDF.
MDF,
Am I trying to imitate a wet palette with the MDF? Because, as I say, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to contact my mate Sean Watson at Red Set Painting. I'm going to say, Sean, if I send money, can I add some soldiers? Because I have no idea. Literally,
wet palette, old bit of MDF, or sending somebody to Sean. Sending somebody to Sean.
Yes.
I'm sorry about this, mate, but we're on a run of painting questions. You might have a feel for this one. That's undercoating. Do you like your figures undercoated black or white?
Back in, if I was painting for myself 15 mils, it would all be black undercoated.
Yeah,
everything would be black undercoated. It's probably a technique that doesn't really stand up to 28s anymore. You've probably got to be a degree more subtle, or use these inks and things that people write. So the army painters and normal washes and stuff that people are doing. We used to, a lot of the tabletop miniatures were kind of stylistic rather than anatomical. And so if you were painting some really nice Saxons or what it did, you could sort of pick the top of the miniature detail out, leave all that black in lines underneath it. And it used to look okay with limited skills.
Yeah.
But I'm sure anybody that's got any real talent, you tell me I'm a monkey and should be using grey.
No, I use black, and I think Sean does as well. Looking at his painting, I think Sean Watson uses black as well.
You know for a fact he's going to say that he uses bird sienna or something.
Oh, it's a bit fancy like that, yeah. It's a bit like Yorkshire. It's either black or white up here. There's yet or no. There's
nothing going on.
There's nothing in between. So we are now on to the tea question. Would you like Yorkshire tea or dirty mucky coffee?
No, I'm going to lose points here. I know I'm going to lose points here. Sorry, it's unlike Mark Hydes, who was on the other week.
Yeah.
He was drinking coffee until 12:30. That's me. And after that, I'm a tea man. And I'll go tea until 6 or 7 o'clock at night. Okay. Bert, listen, it's going to be PG, I'm afraid.
A PG tea? Is that?
It's going to be PG, because otherwise I feel like I'm letting Mr. Shifter down.
True. Is that
all of them wasn't monkeys to have suffered for nothing. So I'm going to have to go PG.
It's all for the monkeys. It's all for the monkeys. Is that
Based up in the 70s so that we don't have to.
Yeah. Is that going back to those cards? Because I remember we had
we were on. That's probably what in my mind earlier is that the PG Tips cards.
Yeah,
I think as a child, I probably would have killed for.
Yes.
Yeah, all those. There were dinosaurs and cars and trains and things. Perhaps all that stuff from the 50s that washed over. And you kind of collect them in stacks with elastic bands around them.
Oh, they were the business. They were
mates. But I mean, that was just for drinking tea. You didn't get that with coffee.
No.
You didn't get that with coffee.
I remember at primary school, we had one of the classrooms you could either buy a book to put your cards in, or you got a poster.
Posters.
And they had the posters on the wall, and we'd all bring in our cards and fill it up, and it was, yeah.
My granddad was a smoker, and I think he used to get cards out of Black Cat.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
I think cigarette cards were a thing before the tea cards.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, but I wasn't allowed to smoke at primary school.
No, we wouldn't smoke, would we? No.
Not at primary school, anyway. It was rough, but it wasn't that bad.
Not till we got to junior school.
Yeah. Oh dear. Right. So we've done the tea question. So war games units, do you like them, the figures, do you like them tightly packed or socially distanced?
Oh, tightly packed, please.
Tightly packed.
I like, I've had 1 and 2 painted in the last kind of 3 or 4 years, and I don't mind sort of having a base size that represents where the unit operates, or I want the unit to look like a unit on the base. So, I mean, if anybody goes on the tag site, but if you have it on the tag site and looking at the galleries, we had some painted by a giant actor, a Lanchneck unit, and it's a 64 Lanchnex on that unit. There might only be 48, but the base is, and I saw you were doing it with the Perry twins and the steel fist metals, running with the pine cap. You need a bit of space around the unit to let it in. So I'm a bunch of up kind of guy rather than the old fashioned straight lines. You would see Greek hoplites or whatever, and they all would be individually spaced on their units, perfectly in line with each other. Maybe just inch slightly other, so they're shoving their spears over the guy in front's head. But yeah, they have to look like proper units.
They've got to look good. They've got to look good.
Yeah.
And if you look closely on the tag gallery, I've got a Borgia pike block in there.
Oh yeah. Lovely.
I'm actually working at the moment, not just because you're on the show, but at the moment I'm working on a Spanish Collinella using tag figures. So
I know some. I saw you.
60 figures.
Once.
60 figures. So yeah, I've done an awful 60 figures. Yeah. Don't muck about. I'll put it on the gallery when I'm done.
Excellent.
I'm looking forward to getting in my teeth into that one. So we're 10 questions in. Question 11. Would you like a 2-hour club game or a weekend monster game?
Oh, come on, weekend monster game. There's nothing wrong with the 2-hour club game. It's about whatever, isn't it? Getting together with your mates and being sociable and rolling a few dice and having a laugh. But if you say, do you want to go the whole 9 yards, then yes, please. Can we have the RV Leipzig again and lose as the Prussians? Week after week.
Well, you can say, I'm playing Prussians. I've got an excuse.
I've got an excuse for losing.
If you lose with the French Guard,
well, that's it,
nobody's
isn't it?
ever going to forget, are they?
No, they're going to look at you like, you had all the best soldiers, and what did you do? Roll all the ones, didn't you?
Yeah, less risk. I like your thinking. So interesting where you're going to go with this one, because you're kind of in the middle of the country in Nottingham, so I'm not sure where the avocado line sits, but avocado, are they just posh mushy peas?
I think like mushy peas, you northern heretic. Well, how you like? mushy peas. My grandma did school meals for 30 years, and she would cook for hundreds of kids, and they would. So she knew how to cook a mushy pea. Believe me, she was a bit of extra sugar just to sweeten it up a bit.
That's the key.
It's not just the north that has mushy peas. I think on Nottingham Goose Fair, we pride ourselves on our mushy peas, but I'm not against an avocado if you've got some prawns.
Right.
Which is going to go better with prawns.
True. I've never had.
It wasn't a rhetorical question, Kenneth.
Well, I've never had mushy peas with prawns.
There you go. So avocado it is in this particular circumstance.
Excellent.
Not a binary choice, is it?
But you mentioned the actual the golden ingredient, a touch of sugar in your mushy peas.
And she'd always put a bit of green food colouring dye in as well, just so it looked like they were really green on the plate. Bless it. She must have. She worked at a school kitchen, and they delivered to 4 other schools, I think. So she'd be doing hundreds of kids' meals every day. The woman was. And whoever used to go around, she used to scoop mushy peas, mashed potato with the old ice cream scoop.
Oh, yes. So you get a measure. Yeah.
Because she was so used to dealing with hundreds of people that you couldn't, Oh, well. Yes, please. Mushy peas.
Mushy peas. Awesome. Question 13, the universal question. Nobody's answered this, everyone. Different so far. So, round dice, spherical dice, are they allowed or banned on your table?
I was at tabletop when Paul bought the first round dice.
Oh, is he responsible?
Games of Liverpool, I think, probably important than Games in Liverpool.
Yeah,
and I remember seeing them for the first time, and I mean, I love this hobby. And there's so much that's great about it. But if there was one thing that was going to bring it to a grinding halt, it was round dice. So not allowed.
Brilliant. I didn't realise they went back that far, because I remember Games of Liverpool really fondly. I used to go over to Lime Street Station and walk over, because it used to be down near where the tunnel entrance is, and spend hours in that lower floor and picking figures out.
Because he would be one of the major game importers in the country, competing with Workshop when they were a game import. And so that I mean, even maybe a stadium of continued over all these years. But yeah, Games of Liverpool, I think, would have been probably the first importers of round dice. And also there was kind of horrible D100s or D100s that were like a war as well. Yeah, and Bob recognised that there were dice collectors. Even then, people would, if he had a new sparkly colour or whatever dice, people would collect dice.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. So,
not having them though.
No, excellent. Well done. I like to keep that the record on that.
Everybody's the same. Yeah.
So a question. This is the new question. Question 14. So when you're playing a set of war games rules, do you like glorious Imperial Empire inches or dodgy French money centimeters? No bias.
You don't want to ask a question, don't you? You bet you've lost some friends out of your time, haven't you? In my entire life, everything I do is measured in millimeters, meters, kilometers, kilos, everything, apart from the war games table, which is of course measured in inches. Doesn't make any sense, but I don't know. I like a nice kind of. There was a point where the DV Dardars were using 40 mil as their standard measurement because it was 40 the width of the base. I kind of like that. I like the idea that you could pick up any base and measure it in the space available, and it would all be the same.
Are you going to sell the fence?
I'm afraid I'm going to have to. You see, isn't it? Sometimes you open up a set of rules and you read that the the basic move is 6 inches, and a run is 9 inches, and a pistol is 12 inches, and a rifle is 24 inches, and you think, oh, please, can we not? You know, we've got to have come further than this, but then we haven't. So.
We haven't, no. But yeah, so there we go. But I at work, I work in metric, and then I have to convert everything back into imperial so people understand what I've done. So.
If you got it, yes, I suppose. You're the same age as I am.
Yeah.
I had no schooling in imperial measurements at all.
We learned them side by side.
Did you? Well, I didn't get any of that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be able to tell you how many ounces in a pound, or next one up, or pounds in a stone. I couldn't tell you any of those. But of course, I do know that a cavalryman moves 12 inches.
Exactly.
Of course it is.
So 16 should be easy for you. 28 mil is king, yes or no?
No, of course it's not. You're not doing your navy in 28 mil, are you? No, of course you're not. Scales suit people's sizes and pockets and aspirations and area and game types and whatever. As I say, I was too many years playing 50 mils to say that that's wrong and you should just march them all into the bin because there's only one true scale. Quite obviously cobblers, isn't it?
Yeah, cool. I missed a question out there. Question 15. Do you love a good table and a set of rules? Like a casualty table or a armour penetration table?
Nothing wrong with a table. Nothing wrong with a table. Oh, Andy.
I'm just gonna bring into evidence.
Go on.
Bruce Murray's Airfix. Now, I've been looking for this for ages because I have no idea where my copy went, but it's going for like 70 or 80 quid.
Really?
Yeah,
I've
really.
got a copy.
But I managed to find.
If you said you were at £80, you could have had mine for 80.
Yeah, but no, because I managed to find this for £12.50. Off some unexpected person who didn't realise it was worth that much. To me, this is worth an absolute. So
a lot of those old war games books and fortune as well. You kind of go looking for armies and enemies of Imperial Rome or whatever, the Nigel Stillman one on Far East or whatever that was very good at the time. The Heath books on the Middle Ages, fantastic. Being pen on and length on them. Absolutely.
So I'm just going to bring this up to the camera and look at those. Those armour tables.
No. You know, is that a problem with the rule set, or is that a problem with the armies of the period having too many variations?
Yeah.
I played World War II, early war stuff with Eagles and Lions the other week, and quite frankly, I had no idea what any of the German equipment did.
Yeah,
and they got loads of it. They got tons of different types, and the British were the same. They got all these different grades of tanks and things, and it's like I have no idea. And if they'd have known there was a war coming, they would have seen. I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. So we've missed that question, so we've done that question, so we're on 17 now, and that's unpainted miniatures. Do you allow them on the table, yes or no?
Only if you're under 16.
Very reasonable.
Nothing stops the kids playing. Nothing, absolutely nothing stops. Once you've got to a point where you can either pay for somebody to do them, or you can sit down for a couple of hours of yourself, and even if it's just spray paint and bad daubing, enthusiasm trumps ability every time. And paint them and get them on the table. I mean, to the strongest,
Simon Miller. Yeah, Simon Miller. Yeah,
Simon Miller. He's a great believer in buying rubbishly painted second-hand miniatures and then daubing them on top himself. And I think that's a laudable attitude. There's a lot of rubbish. People have moved on, and why shouldn't you? Yeah, if if you're not 15,
Get them painted.
get them painted. Yeah.
Question 18, the football question. I haven't got my Bradford City top on tonight. I've got my International Brigades t-shirt. So,
very nice, very nice.
So, is it Bradford City or Leeds United?
Now, my friend Mr. Hudson, who's from Yorkshire, would assure me that it's called Bradford. Bradford, B-R-A-T,
Yeah.
Bradford.
Yeah.
Rather than Leeds. I mean, there's a keep mentioning Sean Watson. I like Sean. He's a nice lad, but I can't recommend him because he supports Leeds.
Oh well, that's him off the list.
I'm a Forest fan,
Yeah,
and so that kind of 44 days thing.
Oh yeah,
sticks in my core a bit.
Ooh.
And I did like Leeds a little bit when I was a kid. I can understand that when we were winning a lot of things, but Bradford playing red, don't they?
Claret and amber.
Claret and amber?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I've gone off them. I don't know what to say now. Is that all you got there? What about Middlesbrough? Is that in Norway?
Middlesbrough playing red, but that's in, is it Cleveland? Well, yeah, I think it's Cleveland. Middlesbrough. Teesside.
No, no. You've only got 2 teams. No, you've got Sheffield. What about the Sheffield teams?
Yeah, we've got the Sheffield teams. We've got Rotherham. We've got Barnsley. We've got Doncaster, Halifax,
York Stadium.
York, yeah. Plenty kicking around, but between Bradford and Leeds, it'd be Bradford.
I can't bring myself to go for Leeds, simply because of the way they treated Mr. Clough, and we all grudge.
I was going to say, it's nice to see that 40, 50-year-old grudges are still held in Nottingham.
It's true.
Speaking of old grudges, question 19, is Yorkshire or the other place over the hill?
What I'm going to say is that some of my best holidays as a kid were spent in Bridlington.
Oh, good old Brid.
Yeah. And up and down that coast there. And it is beautiful, and it was brilliant. And as a kid, the sand and donkeys and fishing boats and whatever else. So if Yorkshire is Bridlington, I'll take Yorkshire, please.
Awesome. Perfect choice, obviously. This could be interesting as you've worked for them. Question 20. Games Workshop, are they the work of the devil? Yes or no?
No, they're not. They're a very single-minded, modern company.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're actually backed by Satan.
I don't know. Well, as I've got one share in Games Workshop. Yeah, one share. Mate, I'll check when I go to the shareholders meeting whether Satan is there or not.
He'd send a representative. He's not going to come himself, is he?
Yeah, but if I carry a bottle of holy water with me and put it in a glass and offer it to people,
random people see you hisses when you get them. They're a fantastic force in the city, and I'm a Nottingham boy. And I worked for them for a while, for a couple of years, and when I left, I was quite bitter about it for a while, and then I got over myself, and kind of I can't help but have admiration for what they built up. And I was listening to American late night talk shows or whatever, this kind of Colbert's of this world, and Workshop got mentioned on the Late Show on CBS.
Wow.
And that wouldn't have happened in 1983. That wouldn't have happened in 1992. They've become a global brand in the last 25, 30 years. And I'm not part of that, but I'm proud of being part of the city that they're part of.
I think in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, with the likes of Henry Cavill, the guy who plays Superman, being a Games Workshop, I know he said coming out as a Games Workshop player. You know what I mean? Particularly for our generation, it wasn't something that you necessarily shouted from the rooftops that you did wargaming, whereas now it's a lot more socially acceptable. And Games Workshop have got a lot to do with that.
A lot to do with that. Of course, D&D is massive in a way that the figure I quote, or I love quoting, is that in 1981 there were 2,500 people went to Gen Con in the States on the weekend. This last Gen Con in April or May, whenever it is, there was 75,000 people through the doors over 3 days.
Wow.
So the geek sphere that we're part of, wargaming, is this tiny little niche within a niche of. That has grown exponentially over a generation. Workshop are part of that, and obviously TSR Magic, D&D as a growth engine in itself. But between the power of them, they've created 2 generations almost of people that are interested in miniature gaming, and that grows the whole hobby. Okay, you're not all going to run off and buy Landschnecks in Pluderhausen, or even a tiny percentage of them, but the whole of the geek sphere that we belong to is so much bigger than it was 30, 40 years ago. So much bigger.
Excellent. Well, you've scored 77.5%, which is
that's quite good.
That's quite good.
I like a nice 7 in a number.
Yeah, 7.75. Very, very, very reasonable indeed.
I think I was going to do once on the PG thing. You know what I mean? I resigned myself to. I knew I couldn't finish in the top 6. Like I wasn't, Manchester City or perhaps a Newcastle or Villa. I was going to finish somewhere in the Brighton, Bournemouth, middle of the pack stuff, certainly.
Well, my friend Richard Harris, who was on in the second episode, he always said he got 95%, but he always says he got 100 because he knew at the start he supports Leeds. So there's no way he was working out a 95 where I was working out of 100. But there we go. There we go.
It's good to see that cultural bias is still a thing.
It always is on this podcast. Cultural bias. I'll say anything. I'll say anything.
Yeah.
I'm not upset to offend, or I can't remember what the saying is now. But I'm not deliberately offended. I'm just being honest.
Just people get offended.
Oh dear me. Right. So next up is Wargames Room 101, and that's where my guest gets an opportunity to have a little bit of a rant about something that they hate in the hobby or dislike. Well, let's see where we go with this. And it's a free space, so you're allowed to rant about anything you like, and we'll see whether it goes in Wargames Room 101 or not. So have you got something that gives you a little tick?
One thing that I think would probably improve everyone's experience and hopefully bring you people into the hobby is to get rid of gatekeeping.
Oh, right,
Those people or that like to put a barrier between you could, no, don't do it that way. No, you can't do it like that. Or you'll need, really, they should have brand buttons rather than, I don't like when, as an example, when we very first went to Nottingham Wargames, as I say, we got given a load of plastic wool Airfix models to play Napoleonic with. And me and Mark and I were working at tabletop, and he was hoovering up broken bits of Gallia, mainly military resin terrain. Right? They were, because this stuff would arrive broken, and we couldn't really sell it, and they didn't take it back. So I would knock it out at a cracking discount. Mark was hoovering all this stuff up and daubing it up quite nicely. And what we would do with these plastic Napoleonics is sort of lay them out in the middle of the table and then put all these buildings round the outside. Like we'd sort of seen War Games Illustrated where they've got backdrops of lovely painted models. And of course, we were sort of doing the same thing, and without subconsciously. And then this nice lad came over and he says, "Oh, it's all wrong, you shouldn't really do like this. He puts his tape measure across it, and he goes, this village is bigger than London. You can't fight in the middle of a village bigger than London." Of course, it didn't make any difference. You know what I mean? We weren't fighting in London. We were just sort of making a backdrop that we'd sort of seen in a magazine, and it was modelling a world rather than at battle. And, had we not been quite the hardy souls that we were, we perhaps could have taken out month and never gone back because somebody had said, don't do that. No, that's wrong. If you'd have said, oh, I see you've got a load of these on, well, I'll have a game with you next time and review it out and break you into it more gently. But yeah, gatekeeping really weaves me up. Anything that stands in the way of people getting enthusiastic.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference, isn't there, between unwarranted and warranted advice. So if I'm putting together a unit and I go onto the internet and go, oh, I'm putting together this unit, I'm wondering about musket colours or whatever, and I'm asking for advice. Because one of the biggest thing that drives me mad is people who assume that you haven't done any research. Well, so the classic one was I did your figures actually mounted arquebus, one firing across the. Did it as a Bandera Giovanni de Medici's figures. Put a flag on, and it's got a Swartz crest and the red balls of the Medici family on it. And this guy goes, "Oh well, you can't have that. Those two people would be never to be together. Those two families, you'd never see that on a flag." And I had to go, "Oh, actually, I've researched this, and Giovanni's mother was Caterina Sforza." Quite clearly a Sforza, and his dad was, I can't remember his first name now, one of the Medicis. So quite clearly he can have those two crests on his flag. And it's like, am I not bothered?
It's, isn't it? Yeah, as you say, what we're creating is really quite personal. It would be your idea of what an Italian war's army looks like. And that, and if your flavour of the Italian War's army might look or taste slightly different to mine or somebody else's, and people that sort of go, no, that's wrong. Well, I don't know whether that's valid or not. I don't know whether there is a wrong, because they're sort of, ideas of toy soldiers or, somebody's army. Anything that stops it and sort of puts up a little barrier between you and where you want to go, even if, maybe 10 years down the line, you look at it and think, I was a bit of a numpty there, that's probably not right. And then I've changed my mind, or we don't do it like that anymore. But yeah, I mean, at the time, he came across as obstreperous and all-knowing. And really, he was a nice enough bloke. And if he'd just said, oh, we should do it this way, come and I'll have a game with you next week, and I'll set a terrain, yeah? And you don't need to say anything. You don't need to be condescending to us. He could have led us on. And I'd rather people did that than put up a little barrier that says you're all wrong, because wrong is not really the case.
I'm very true. I think it's disappearing from the hobby as we go along. It's a lot less prevalent than it was. For sure.
Yeah, okay, we're all a bit autistic. I mean, if they say, if all your friends are autistic, have a look at yourself. We can all be a bit button counter about these things. You say you want your flag to be as right as you make it. But when you've done the research and you think that you've got it right and it suits your thing, then that is right. That is what it is, because it's your eye.
Yeah, you've got to decide what you're going to do at some stage and paint the bloody figures rather than
comparing it, because they're not themselves, are they?
Exactly. Exactly. So we'll finish this section off then. Gatekeepers is a good one to put in the hole for sure. So we'll finish off with the Desert Island War game then, and this is very similar to the Radio 4 show. You're on a desert island and you can take certain things with you. I think you get a copy of the Bible and the works of Shakespeare, both of which will help you set a fire, I'm sure, if you're stuck for some paper. Toilet roll, maybe.
I'm dyslexic, so both of those books kind of...
No, they're not ideal. They're not ideal.
Not ideal. No, not ideal.
So the first thing is a war game. What would be the one war game that you would like to have with you?
Well, I couldn't quite understand this question when it came up on the cheat sheet that you sent me previously. We're talking about the entire... Are you talking about a set of rules, or are you talking about an entire table? Because if I could lift Peter Gilder's Leipzig game from Scarborough to this desert island that I'm going to, I'll take that, please, because it's got 5 armies for a start. And I can play French versus Russians versus Prussians versus Swedes. Which one am I missing? Austrians.
Austrians, yeah.
Who's ever seen an Austrian? Right, and I would lift that lock, stock, and barrel out of the War Games Holiday Centre and place it under some sort of palm tree coverall on the desert island, so it's not going to get too dusty.
Yeah.
I mean, how big was that?
That's fine. That is a perfect selection.
Yeah,
because it's something that means something to you. It would be very interesting to see how varnish of that age worked with direct bright sunlight, so you'd have to make sure that there'd be a lot of yellowing going on, I think.
I bought one of the French... I was in next door, actually. I bought one of the French cuirassiers that Peter Gilder painted and used that kind of... You can sell them off.
Yeah.
God knows what gloss varnish it is, but it's still in next door, and the cat sleeps on it on a daily basis. It never... It's like armor coat.
Wow.
Wow.
So have you got a favourite book that you'd like to take with you as well? What would be your go-to?
It's a War Games book.
Okay.
I'll give you 2 then. If it's a War Games book, I'm going to take Ian Heath's book on that came out through Foundry Books of the Irish and English and Dutch and Spanish in the Low Countries in the early 2000s. All those Heath books that he did for WRG and later Foundry are brilliant.
They are
for historical detail, and those pencil sketches are just to die for. But if I was to take a book to read, I probably will take Machiavelli's Discorsi on the first 10 books of Titus Livy, simply because he's got some good jokes in it. He's got a few good jokes in there. And he knows people. In terms of psychology, he knows how people tick. And I probably will want to run my own Perfect Republic on this desert island. So I'm going to need a guide. So those 2, please.
Yeah, the Prince is one of the books that I always come back to and read every now and again. In fact, I was on holiday last year and I bought a new copy of it because my old one was falling apart. So
you can almost read the Prince as satire.
Yes,
if you sort of change the tone of his writing by kind of 1 notch, he's honestly taking the piss. I mean, the of the 2. Which comes first? I think he starts the Discorsi, and then he writes the Prince for general consumption, and then finishes the Discorsi afterwards. But in terms of ideas, the Discorsi's got them all. And
I'll get around to reading that one day, I have to say. But I do very much enjoy the Prince.
And the desert island that you promised me.
Yeah,
I am going to this desert island. I'm looking forward to that.
And then finally, a War Games unit can be anything from history, one that you own, or what a War Games unit that means something to you.
1 unit?
Just 1 unit.
1 unit?
You've already got a table full of Leipzig, haven't you?
Oh, that's the thing, isn't it? I suppose I should take something that I've made.
Oh.
I'll take something that Tag has made, and Sean Watson, who's been named up in the entire way through this, painted me a French Royal Swiss unit, and Tim Whitworth very kindly did me the banners for it as well. And I put 2 gold finials on top of the last 2 flags to finish the entire unit off.
Nice.
And it's brilliant. It's 48 men. Every one of them's different. The tones of the painting you got right for me. The unit looks lovely. It's probably the thing I'm most proud of. So I'll take that, please.
And it's definitely the finials that makes them that good.
What can you call it? Tim mocked me for months and months. But this unit got painted, and I did some research on the flags, like I'm talking about. You want to get it right. You think, I wanted the flags to do this and that and that. And I pointed it out to Tim, and he got them made and then printed them off. And he likes to do flags at a size and a quarter or something, so they look a bit more dramatic than ways. And he did these flags for me, and he came into the work unit and he sat an hour and put them onto this beautiful unit. And literally, the only thing I had to do with this unit, I'm going to mould it. And I did the casting. You would have done the master castings for it. And the only thing was take 2 tiny pieces of green stuffed ball that I'd rolled as small as I could and plop them on top of these finials and painted them gold. I was done. Thank you very much. That was my role completed.
Finished them off.
Oh, it's what it needed.
What it needed.
Tim used to mock me. He says, have you done them? Have you done them bag holes yet? Have you done that finials yet? And it's like, no, Tim. Eventually, I did that. It is finished. It is finished. And it looks beautiful. And so, probably the thing I'm most proud of. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that. We shall move on to our final section when we're going to talk about the Assault Group. So here we go, back with the podcast, and we're in part 4. And as regular listeners know, this is when we kind of take a deep dive into our main topic. And Pete, as we've already talked about briefly, is the owner of TAG, or the Assault Group, or always waving his hands a bit. Is he the
owning's a bit of an ish. Partly owned between myself and my mate of mine, Steve Clark, who he was one of Nottingham Wargames Club. He's been a painter, gamer, collector, whatever, for almost as long as I have. So when I first started work as a mould maker on my own, he was working at the job agency, whatever the record then, DSS or the Anyway job centre. So anyway, he went through lots of title changes. And he said that the advice he always used to give to self-employed builders and bricklayers that came to sit in front of him looking for work was that they should build on their own houses.
Nice.
If you've got a few bricks and you've got the time, then putting that into your own house, build more in the long term. This was struck me as good advice. And TAG is my house. It's the thing that I've been building on the side whilst working as a mould maker for other people. I mean, there have been times when Steve's had, I say, he used to collect trading cards, and there's times when he had plenty money to invest in the company and get the miniatures that he wanted made, and there have been times when he's been less interested, and things have just gone on in a direction. Yeah, it's been Steve and I's sort of old hole for 20 years now, just over. I was in a communication with Nick Collier, who's the long-term sculptor at TAG, and he was working, doing 15 mils for Ziston at the time. And
yes, I remember those.
Yeah, and also doing some 28mm sci-fi stuff for people. And I was trying to get him to do something for me, and it was not really working, and it just didn't kind of click. And then a lad called Seth Nash walked into my work unit one day, and he needed a job. I needed somebody as an assistant to do stuff, just to answer the phone when I wasn't there, and pick up on little tasks and whatever else. And Seth was never really good at the casting, but he was a fantastic sculpt. He got sculpting talent. So I couldn't let the lad walk away. He started working for me. He lived within 3 miles of the work unit. And I was sensible enough to say, well, it was at the time that I think the kind of tax credits used to suit you. If you'd got a small family, you could sort of work a few hours and still claim the credits. Right. And so I would be very flexible with Seth about his 16 hours a week or whatever it was he was doing to start with. It was a part-time job. And as a result, he was astonishing. He was brilliant, absolute kind of mirth machine. He was never 2 days the same. I mean, we were laughing all the time, laughing and joking all the time. Eventually, he was much bigger talent than I could hang on to at any one time. He wants to go away. He ended up doing 3D computer designs for these big I'll say Call of Duty. I don't know what it was, Call of Duty. I don't do computer games, but he ended up doing that kind of 3D design for those kinds of people, and was getting himself a name. He was a talent. But whilst he was kicking around, we managed to get him to do whatever it was, about 48 packets, I don't know, something like that. Maybe a couple of 100 miniatures sculpted. And we were doing moderns period because it allowed us, part of it was I didn't want to step on the toes of all the other people I was making molds for. I was making molds for Vendor and sort of Crusader and Artisan and one or two other people. And these, I had to find something that was not their ranges, because otherwise they would be quite rightfully, I would have thought, a bit peeved. So we were doing moderns because nobody else was doing moderns in 2001 and 2002. This kind of, we was a strange time doing it. But we got started doing that. And after a while, the trouble with moderns is that it attracts people that have got political views.
Yes, yeah.
And people tend to hold political views quite strongly, which is okay. But Seth was getting threats of violence against him for making models that were, they weren't, in terms of war games stuff, where you see casualties on every war games table. They weren't that far away, and he was getting nasty threats of violence. Somebody, I think, wanted to take a hammer to his knees.
Oh,
that's not nice, is it? For making toy soldiers. We did find somebody to pick up on that for a while, but eventually we decided that thing about, if we're going to start with skirmish range models, which we were doing with Vietnam and the modern stuff, and a bit of World War II, which we got Nicole to sculpt to start with, people tend to buy 48, 96, and then they're done.
Yeah.
Whereas once we started making historical armies, the possibility of selling a lot more arises. I mean, I don't know how many regiments of English 30 years war horse, somebody like you might decide was a good number.
Yeah.
I would have thought that they probably don't get started until you've got a couple of hundred, yeah?
I don't put a project on a table until there's 500 figures in it. So
that's a bit of a difference between selling it. Because what would happen with, if once we sold 24 US Delta to somebody is they would never come back and buy any more. So we sort of, Nick Nick had done the World War II stuff, which was Japanese and Americans from the Pacific. And they're very good and still our top-selling models, and we sell them on a weekly basis still. But he didn't like the kind of flitting around. He wanted, you do the research for the Japanese army or something, and you would spend 4 or 5 months doing the research, and then you would spend 3 or 4 months doing the miniatures, and then next. And he didn't really want to do next. He wanted to continue to do the same thing. So we were looking for a period that would suit Nick, that would give us scope to do war games type units and armies, and that wasn't being covered already by the big boys. And that basically left the Renaissance. Or the other one we might have thought about was the Lace Wars, the War of Spanish Succession, end of the 8th, 17th century stuff. But we stuck a pin in, and we started with making poles for the 17th century, which, again, I mean, I was casting them only last week, and we're still selling them 25 years down the line.
When we went through your original 4 minutes, I think you mentioned it was your mum that finally got you to go on to your own company. So roughly when was that? Were we talking late 90s, early 2000s?
I left Wargames Foundry in the August of 2000. August of 2000. And 10 years previously, Mum had said to me, as I was finishing Alternative Armies in 92 or 3, she was saying, you should get your own equipment and do all this stuff yourself, because you've obviously got a market of people here who buy moulds. And she said, and so eventually in 2000, she did what was necessary for finding the finance to buy. I suppose I must have spent about £7,000 or £8,000 on machinery. Mainly, casting machine would have been £2,500. The moulding press would have been a similar price. Eventually, I bought a blister packing machine, which didn't really want, but it came as part of something else. So, yeah, in about 2000, I went into business as a freelance mould maker in 2001, and pretty much there's, I do advertise occasionally looking for work for moulding, but if not much. And I make moulds for people all over the world over the past 20 years, and a lot of people. But yeah, as I say, mould making has been the thing, and then Tank was making money building slowly on the side. And then probably in the last kind of 10 years, it switched the other way around, where I have to work at TAC 3 or 4 days a week, and then do mould making for other people on a couple of them days. So.
Yeah, so we've not spoken to anybody who is a mould maker before. I used to work with a guy called Steve Royan at Hallmark Figures, and he would make moulds, and he used to do them for the AB, the one they used to have used to have a north and a south. Right. Steve was the northern sort of distributor who would do all the shows and make moulds and stuff. So I've got a rough idea, but just for the members of the public out there, somebody comes to you then for you to make a mould. They're going to supply you with the figures that they want moulding. So what's the process to get them into a production mould?
Okay. You're going to need, the first thing you're going to need is an original. You're going to need a sculpt of some kind. Yeah. I never can't provide those. And then I sometimes point people in the way of names for sculpting and those kinds of things. But you're going to need a sculpt. I wish you've got a nice, hard, original sculpt that I can mold from. Then we use organic black silicone rubber, which is it's soft. It will take an impression. If you dig your fingernail into it or whatever, you can leave a fingerprint on it quite easily. But it's a tough material if soft. And then what happens is that I make a mold with one of those cavities on, one of those original masters on. And you've got to be careful you don't break it or whatever else. And you get a decent casting at the end of it, and one or two of them sort of technical aspects. But once you've got one cavity, you can spin that cavity half a dozen times, or maybe 16, 20 times, and fill a mold with that one cavity, that second generation model. And from that second generation model, you can produce hundreds or thousands of models. Very seldom happens these days. I work Die Hard Miniatures, fantasy game company, great that Tim Prout. There's a lot of kind of old school styled 28 miniatures, 28mm fantasy sci-fi. You know, you'll do a Kickstarter. The Kickstarter will pay for a mold to be made, which will contain, 2 or 3 cavities. And that 2 or 3 cavities will then produce a mold which will maybe make, easily 100 of the models we're after. And if they're nicely sort of mold sympathetic models, they might make, 200 or 300 spins of that mold to produce whatever. As I said, when we were at Workshop, we were producing thousands and tens of thousands of models. Doesn't really happen with what I do at the moment. We sell 100, 150, 200, or maybe it's something like a tag model, something bland like a Catholic pikeman or whatever, that we'll sell, 4 packs of a month, but we'll sell 4 packs of that a month, every month, year in, year out, 20 years. Out of the same mold, pretty much. Everything that we do remake molds, you have to. The ones that are a struggle, most are horses. And the horses, they're often used by multiple different types, and they wear badly. So they get replaced quite often. But lots of the molds, in fact, I would say 90%, over the 90% of the molds that I've made for tag are still the original molds that are made for that range. And as long as they're looked after, they shouldn't really wear out. So
this mold then, is it a specific size? And what sort of number of figures do you get in an individual mold, a production mold?
Yeah.
How many figures would you get around it?
We have a tag which is a standard 9-inch. 9-inch.
Imperial measurements.
Yeah, and on that 9-inch mold, we will put a pack of 4 miniatures on, reproduced 4 times.
Okay.
So there's 16 models on that mold. Now, it would be nice if they cast perfectly every time. You'd be surprised. Lots of them do, a few of them don't. But so if you manage, often sort of, it takes a little bit of warming up to bring up to temperature and whatever else. But the first spin is never cold. Once you get into the second and third spins, you find in producing 2 and 3 and 4 packets worth of models on every spin that we do. So that's a pack is £8.50 at the moment. So you're talking about 17 or 35, 34 pounds worth of saleable retail stuff out of every spin. Somewhere between the two. So it's never been, producing miniatures has never been the problem. Selling miniatures is the problem. We never sell anywhere near capacity. In my workshop, I've got 1/12 of what Games Workshop had in terms of industrial capacity in their workshop in 87, 88 when I was there. I am not doing 1/12 of their business by a long stretch. long stretch.
Yeah.
And so they're relatively easy and quick. You sort of stand and do it. It's one of those things that's time consuming. And I pretty much have cast everything. Over the years, I worked out another day, there would have been 4 people that might have cast tag miniatures for you. Sam Nash, right from the very beginning, Seth's brother, he worked for us for 6 months or 9 months or so, great lad, and he was just at school, brilliant working with a kid. That was amazing. And I worked with a lad that I've known since Wargaming in Arnold, Brian Ashmore. And then I cast him for 10 years. And then recently, my buddy mate Mark did a couple of years worth of work for me. But if you've got a tank miniature, chances are I cast it. I decided whether it's, the casting's good enough or not good enough. But I wanted to, there's been 3 other people who have worked in it over 25 years, but it's incredibly personal now. I don't know whether people quite realise that if you order that foreign tag, there's only one person to look at the end of the day. It's not like we're, one of the bigger companies in the city where they've got, 20, 40, 50, 100 people working for them. I mean, one of them certainly has 100 plus employees, one of the bigger organizations. It's not a case. It's just me, pretty much. Especially when it comes into the casting. And then the mornings and whatever else, and answering email and whatever else there is. So it's not hard work, but it's constant work, and it's hot, and it's my phone's quite sweaty. But if yourself or I do know an awful lot of my customers by name, by first name. On a joke, Mello, we know where you live.
We know where you live.
We know where you live. But yeah, I've been doing it's, and that's the beauty of it, is that when I send you your package out, or you or somebody else, that's just the start. You put the effort in that makes it your army, which makes it your miniatures, which makes it your unit. I'm only a part of it. I'm supposed to be a part of it. It's bringing their photographs of. I can't get them in post to the gallery. You do, it's great. But some people are obviously a little bit kind of xenophobic, or perhaps a little bit shy about what they do. And they'll show me them on their phone. And so he's here, Mr. It's going away. It's wow. The hours you spend, a few minutes that I might spend making a miniature, the hours the painter from the gamer puts in, it's brilliant. It's amazing.
So we'll just come back, if we may, to the mould making process, because I remember working with Steve, so I had very limited knowledge. There's a skill in mould making, isn't there? In to get the metal to flow and to fill the details.
It's technique.
How do you go about that? What's not the secrets, because I don't want you to give away your secrets, but how do you get that metal to flow so it fills the detail of the models?
And the thing about, of course, metal is that once you get it hot enough, it flows like water.
Yeah,
getting it to stop flowing can be an issue, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you take a ladle full of molten metal and just pour it from a height onto the floor. It will splash about and shoot off in all directions that you've got no idea where they're going. Modern swords are circular, and they go in a casting machine which spins centrifugally. So when you drop the molten metal down the middle, it shoots to the outside and fills up. As long as you're feeding it, in the correct way. And that's the technical bit. You've got to know where to put those feeds in so that the thing can flow properly. It shouldn't be a great deal of hassle. People overthink it. People overmystify these things. People like it to be a little bit of magic or a secret. It's not true. It's not true. It's not. And then we'll get on to people doing 3D printing. people have been doing home casting for much longer than they've been doing 3D printing.
I used to have my little Prince August moulds in my mum's shed. Oh, I never set fire to the house in the shed. I've got no idea.
Not trying.
But a little drop cast. Boom.
Yes.
There's your figure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you'll understand that getting things to cast is a relatively simple thing. It's a relatively simple thing. Doing it so you can produce hundreds a day, thousands a day, or in the case of Workshop in the 80s, tens of thousands a day, is a different matter. There's some stuff that, I did a really big run for somebody's Kickstarter 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and they sold a lot of miniatures, and there was things I was remembering as I was casting them that I was thinking, I've forgotten why I have to do X or Y, because I've not done it in that kind of quantity for so many years. So there's things that you kind of need to do that, and the problem with the mold is that if you continue to pour hot method into the cavity, that heat dissipates into the mold. The mold gets hotter and hotter and hotter to the point where, the things just flow straight through. As I say, it flows like water if you're not careful, and out the side. So there's this stuff that you need to know, and there's sort of techniques that you need to sort of be able to be on top of. It's about balancing the heat and the speed and all these things at the same time. But it's certainly not rocket science, and it's not magic either. And if you were the kind of person that likes the idea of a home cast, you can do home casting relatively simply.
Is there a limitation? I've heard this a few times with what poses can be done in a traditional centrifugally cast mould. Is there a time when somebody will come to you with a figure and you'll go, "Oh, I don't know."
The thing about if it's made with strength, if it's made with, it's going to withstand the pressures of the press, which is, multiple tons, 15 tons worth of pressure, and 150 degrees worth of heat, which will rise on vulcanization. If it's going to survive that, the pose itself doesn't make any difference.
Right.
What makes a difference is mold wear. If you've got an arm or something that sort of sticks, like an old Hinchcliffe figure that sticks out to the side, and you've got a big U shape, that U is going to pull every time it comes out of the mold. And eventually that'll wear through. The heat will just cook all the oil out of the mold, and it'll go crispy and pull away, and you get a rip. It'll look horrible. You have to throw them all away and go back to your napkins, and they come in the mold, and away you go. But what happened? Lots of the people that learned to sculpt because they wanted to sculpt at Games Workshop. And Games Workshop, from about 88 or 9 onwards, would start to get rid of all those undercuts and all that difficulty and whatever else, and produce blander, more flat, filled models that would last longer because they were casting tens of thousands on them. And therefore the mold costs they could get around. You've seen our Spanish Rodeleros, have you not? Where we do a sword in hand and a buckler, all in one piece, in a nice hose. And those molds will wear out quicker than the Catholic pipe that I was speaking about earlier, which are straight up and down, no rips, no undercuts. But the numbers we're selling make any difference. It make a nice model than a bland model that will last forever. I've got to read. I said, my problem is I'm a mold maker, so my solution is let's make some more molds because that's my solution. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't care if I've got to make remakes of things because they're worn out or ripped or whatever. Because I'd sooner have a nice model. I'd sooner have a model that's that represents a real human rather than these sort of cartoony war games miniatures. There's an aesthetic there, and I must admit that personally, I allow Nick Collier to do whatever he wants in terms of pose because it can make a good miniature. But if somebody comes to me and says, "Pete, I'm thinking of sculpting this or that," I'd probably have this conversation that you and I have just had, and I say, well, you can make it perfect and beautiful and whatever else, but you might be remaking the mould every 100 things, and that might not suit you.
Yeah.
The mould maker costs, I'm like the invoices.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
yeah.
No, and it's a balance. It's a balance. You can make perfect poses of whatever you choose to do. I mean, you can be as dynamic as you want. They might be more difficult to cast in the medium term, and they might wear out in the long term. Or what's better, a model that actually looks right, or a compromise that's made for the mold.
So we'll move on to material then. You are, I think, exclusively 28mm white metal. Is that right?
That's correct.
So the price of metal fluctuates.
It is an internationally traded alloy, right? And I would say that over the last 5 years, the price has gone from, to me, £10 a kilo.
That's not too bad then.
15, maybe over 5 years. Now, okay, it's gone from 10 to 15 in 5 years. It went from 10 to 12
right. Okay.
in 4 years and 9 months. And it's gone from 12 to 15 in 3 months.
Yeah, that's quite fairly stable. I mean, I'm obviously not involved in the day-to-day trading of it, but certainly with the metals market, with COVID, and there was the lack of computer chips and stuff like that, where certain metals were hard to get hold of for a period of time, and
that stuff fluctuates things, but it does fluctuate, and it does peak and trough, and over a period of time. We also there would be things like the US Reserve would release tons of its metal reserves, and that would plummet the price, drop the price, because there's more availability of the needle all of a sudden. And those kinds of things, obviously, we can have no kind of control over whatsoever. But equally, if you're buying petrochemical extracts...
Oh, yeah, it's always up and down.
They're stable price, aren't they? Petrol's always cheap, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Petrol's always cheap.
I can see why you are... have you ever experimented with plastic or resin or any other medium?
Personally, I don't like it. I always associate... There's nothing wrong with plastic miniatures. They're a great budget way of getting into gaming. And those Airfix plastics are still around. And if you want to go and buy French cuirassiers in a box from Airfix, you can still do
same mold, probably.
They're probably still damn cheap, yeah? Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's nothing wrong with plastic. It's perfectly suitable. But I like metal. I like that sensation of weight in your hand. And even when you put that miniature back on the table, subconsciously your brain knows it weighs something. Whereas when you go to pick up a plastic unit, your arms go like this. Oh, where did it go? And so I mean, some people have. It just doesn't float my boat. It just doesn't float my boat. So I don't pick them up. I like a nice plastic model. Those, whatchamacallits that you've had, the Perry Twins, War of the Roses infantry, and the Knights you've done, fantastic models, and I'd be proud to have them in my collection. And maybe I'd find some extra way of adding some weight to them to give them a bit more bulk, or maybe I've put one model in 3 as metal or something, but because I like a bit of weight. They're fantastic. They're beautifully made and they're perfectly suitable for their things. Excellent. A lot of plastic models are not that good. I don't like it when they take the shoulders off. When they take the miniature off of the shoulders, it's not too bad with those Harry foot figures. But a lot of the World War IIs, plastic World War IIs you see around, it just look like these are orcs, aren't they? They've got this kind of guns. This doesn't fit my vote. So I'm not interested. They're very expensive. I mean, I have no idea how much a screw costs to make these days. Obviously, nowhere near relatively what it did in 1992 or whenever we first started seeing real plastics turning up from independent makers. But they're not. I think lots of them are very kind of poorly designed, and because you can go from a 3D design, computing digital design, into a plastic steel mold, you can make it really bad. A lot of 3D sculpting is not up to crack.
Very poor. Very poor. Some of it.
There are some very good bitty printers around, sculptors around. A lot of them making fantasy models, brilliant fantasy models, 3D files. A lot of them that are using 3D sculpts to go into plastic or go into steel molds for plastic injection, are tending to be not as good a model as we used to, and that's a step back.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think some of it.
I'm not against it on purpose. I'm not against it on principle, because Bob Naismith, who Naismith Designs years ago and worked at Workshop and has been at all sorts of independent companies, and is 3D sculpting now for Victrix.
Right, I didn't realise he was there.
Brilliant models. They make some brilliant models, don't they? They look like Wargames miniatures. They have that aesthetic of a good Wargames miniature. They're sculpted in 3D, and then they're made in plastic. And they're a little big for my liking, but they're fabulous models. I remember seeing some else whenever it was at Antwerp, maybe 5 years ago. Really fantastic, lovely. But what's the good ones? Good plastics at the moment are the Perrys and the Victrix, where they have a sculptors who have a knowledge of wargaming.
Yes.
And they're taking that to the plastic sculpting rather than their plastic sculpts that are making wargames models.
Yeah.
I
understand where you're coming from there for sure. So you kind of, you're going to stick with what you know and what you're good at. When it comes to ranges, then we spoke earlier on. You had that modern Vietnam kind of phase, and then I think you're mostly known, and I don't think you'll be upset with this, but you're mostly known for your Renaissance figures.
That's you.
So what's kind of your big drive there? Are you trying to complete the period? Are you trying to make sure there's figures for everything? How do you go about picking your ranges with that lot? Because it's a big wide period of time and nationalities.
Yeah, it's fast now.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure we really realised how big it was going to be when we started.
Yeah.
As I say, we've done some World War IIs with Nick. He sort of expressed an interest in doing something that was more wargamey and less skirmishy, so he could get more models before changing tack. And I don't like unfinished
Yes.
things.
Is this the
There are
army
some
list
holes
thing
in.
coming back to haunt you, where you've got to have everything?
Yeah, no, I feel responsible for it.
Yeah.
I feel responsible for it. Sometimes you look at I mean, even with these small games that people are releasing, and they list the troops you should have, but then they only made half of them.
Yeah, that's a bit weird.
I've got to go away and find some elsewhere that fits or don't fit or whatever else. So yeah, there's a bit of the sort of completist in me, but I kind of know that that's impossible. I know that it's not. I can't do all the soldiers from the whole world for 150 years, can I?
You can try.
Can I?
You can try.
Yeah, I know. I'm doing that for. I mean, even so, I've been mentally shuttering off parts of the period. Just like somebody said, "Oh, why don't you do everything Chinese range?" And I go, "Well, look, the Perry twins have already got a samurai range and a Korean range that matches the range you're talking about. So even if we were to sell a Chinese range, they would pick up all the sales and get all the money. So they should do it, shouldn't they? And I don't, and therefore I'm not going to." And I can apply that kind of logic in lots of places. I mean, the horrible thing about the 16th and 17th century is it's the age of colonial expansion. And so if I really wanted to cover it well, I'm going to need a Javan army, aren't I? And I'm going to need one for the Malaccas.
Yeah.
And I'm going to need one for Tupi in South America. And I'm going to need, and this is all patently impossible to do. So we sort of, on the continent of Europe, we'll be about there relatively swiftly, and we'll be able to say, yeah, you can go from Conquistador, Reconquista Spain to Poland, Lithuania, Russia, Sweden, 150 years later, and we've got everything. I know for a fact that I'm 20 packets short of that at the moment, and I don't sleep well at night knowing that there's gaps.
You need to get those 20 packs done.
I need to get those boxes ticked. Yeah. Yes, and then I can sleep. There are, which is, when you consider where we've come from, because I think there are probably 500 packets in that range now. Yeah, probably best part of 500. We might be 10 or 15 short of that, but 500, and that's 2,000 individual skulls, or somewhere in there, 1,700 to 2,000 skulls from one person.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And when you're putting together a new army or a new group of figures, do you look to include different poses within, Catholic pikemen? Do you look to include, different poses within that pack, or how does that work? Each individual named figure different types of that figure.
We tend to put poses together in a group, so that so if you're buying High Dukes firing, you're getting 4 different miniatures all firing, because. And then we make a marching pack and an advancing pack and a loading pack and pole arms pack or whatever it is, and a couple of command packs. And so if you want to put all of those together into one unit and have a nice amorphous mass, and we've got lots of models, or if you're the kind of person that likes to have everybody marching, well, we've got slightly less variety, but we can do that too.
Yeah.
Or if you want to have more firing, we can do that. This partly comes from what a friend of mine, he was buying Cockleston Back at Beyond stuff, and he got very uptight with me that he would open a packet of Cockleston miniatures, and there would be a pack of, I don't know, Russian Bolsheviks, and half of them, a quarter of them would be in winter gear, and a quarter of them would be in summer gear, and a quarter of them would be, and effectively that makes that one pack sort of useless, because the guy in the summer gear is never going to fight with the guy in the winter gear. It's not a question of posing so much as making the packs useful to the gamer. We've become very formulaic over 20 years. It's been so long since Nick and I talked about poses that it would be honestly, because he knows what we want now, and I'm willing to let him just run, and there's never anything he makes that I can't mold. So we don't kind of limit that. We do want to make them useful for the gamer. They've got to be. The pose necessarily doesn't make much difference, but we do need lots of them. So if we've got what we did with the 30 Years War stuff was the pikemen themselves are actually quite boring poses. We do Catholics and Protestants, and we do the marching and standing. And marching is just with the arm cupped, you put a pike in, the other one's out to the side, and that's very static. But when we went back to make more 30 Years War models, we put some in mood homes and one or two kind of English ones in. They're very poorly equipped compared to the Catholics and the Protestants. We did those in different poses. They were advancing or at port or whatever the pose was. So those that didn't like the staticky poses maybe would come in and buy the more moving poses. So we try and mix it up across different ranges to give you plenty of mix. But they're all going to be the same in the same pack, so that you're not getting that thing where one guy's, because we were talking about making things more character, putting that character in the pack. The guy's got a chicken, or hey, he's eating chicken, that's great. But who wants 1 in 4
with a chicken?
With a chicken, exactly. You don't want it. It's silly, isn't it?
It's just like they've raised the KFC.
So after a while, we sort of realised that we're making war games models, and we've got to make. There are. When I was at Foundry, Brian Ansell used to say that there are only 7 good poses for miniatures, and if you look at the Coppleston Darkest Africa miniatures for that period, you can probably count those 7 poses almost literally. There'll be a weight on the left foot, there'll be a weight on the right foot, there'll be a slightly open weight on the left foot, right foot, there'll be a whatever it is, throwing or a more exaggerated pose, a bolt upright, knees, ankles together pose. They're very formulaic, and it's probably a good thing, really, because it's comes from that, I don't know, Hinchcliffe, French Fusilier at Margitac, or French Fusilier advancing, and it's deep in the psyche at this point, isn't it?
Yeah.
We can't change it.
That's very, very true. And are the vast majority of your models single piece, or do you have some, it's like separate heads or separate weapons? How do you produce those sorts of figures?
There was an element of kit building, certainly, especially with more regular troops. The more regular they are, the easier it is to kit build them. But the Renaissance isn't a very regular period. Everything's handmade, and it might vary from one man to the next. So what we tend to do, Nick, will make a body dolly blank, and I'm not going to say blank, but it will perhaps contain up to 60% of perhaps 80% of the detail level, up to the shoulders, and when we put off at the shoulders and leave the neck. And that basic pose, you might if you're talking about those Hydux that we were making earlier, I think we made 6 or 8 dolls, and then we made 32 models from those dolls. So if you go looking, you can pick out those dolls. They're there to be seen. But we don't just do, let's make one head and stick it on this model.
Yeah.
Because that extra 20% level of detail that he's putting on is the final detailing, is the character, is that thing that will draw the eye. The snarl of the lip, the beard, the eyebrows, the way he's looking, what else it is that's going to draw you out, or the detailing on the coat or the buttons or whatever it is. But that last 20% brings it all together. So yes, we have a method of making models. We don't make everything up from the ground every time we make a model. Yeah. And for sake of consistency as well, I mean, you have to be a robot to be able to make 2,000 pictures all the same. That wouldn't be impossible. But yeah, so, it makes a lot of sense for Nick to have 5 different cavalry saber casting types in front of him. And then he puts a mixture of those into the cavalry that he's doing his hand, and then he'll do a little bit of work on each hilt or on the blades or whatever it takes just to lift it to that next level. But yeah, there's a method to it, but it's not as simple as just, they call it head swapping, which used to go on a lot in the 90s. And then perhaps unfair to criticise, but if you were to perhaps look at the sort of Essex 15 mils, a lot of those regular ones would just be a tweak, head off, you head on, where you go again. And you can do it like that, but they're backwards.
The times, they are a-changing.
I don't know if been anything revolutionary in the last 20. But we have a method that I think people perhaps underestimate the amount of fine. People say to me, why didn't you put all your heads on sale online? Why don't you must have all those helmets and hats and all that stuff. Just put them online and, mold them up. We'll buy them. But what they are is they're all missing that last level of detail that makes them any good. And I'd be loath for people just to stick 30 years war kind of Morians onto things and know that they've not had the beards put on, or that little bit of extra facial detail, or Nick's gone through and put all the studs around the outside of the body, or whatever else he does to finish things off. It's not a kit build. It's not a kit build, although there's an aspect of that.
And I think I mean this in a positive way. No, I do actually mean this in a positive way. In that tag has a look. I can look at a tag figure and say, I know where that's come from.
Thank you.
And I think that's a positive thing in that. It's not branding. I'm trying to think. I'm struggling to think of the right, which is unusual for me to think of the right word here. But I can look at a set of figures and I go, they're tagged, and I think that gives you an identity that people can buy into. Is a bit of an Americanism, but they can stay with that image through an army, and I think it works really well.
Thank you. We have an aesthetic to our models that holds them. I mean, obviously it helps that Nick has sculpted so many of them over the period that he is responsible for that aesthetic so much. But equally, I think when I was talking about Victrix a moment ago, they have an aesthetic to those models, and that suits. And the Irish Twins have an aesthetic to their models that suits them. And I would like people to, as you say, if you can. Sometimes a sculptor will send stuff to me. I'm working with, on an offhand basis or irregular basis or something like that. Mark Evans, great. I work with occasion on some models. Send some models through, and I go, yes, that is a tag model.
Yes.
That's a tag model. That's because it's got the pose, it's got the dynamism, it's got the character, it's got the that makes it a tag model. And I'm, sometimes if you don't make that art, sometimes we've got stuff in the range that I think, is that good enough? It only just falls over the bar. But yes, obviously Nicolo is a great big part of that because he has determined the look of that range for a good long time.
It's something that's quite hard to quantify quite often, but when you look at a 3D design that hasn't had a human hand touching malleable putty or however it's been done, I can see that it's not there. But when I look at a hand sculpted, it's still got that life to me that can only come from, hopefully for a long period of time, the input of a human.
I don't think it's anything to do with the medium used. As I say, Victrix, Alternate Smith, 3D sculpts, great job. Top of the range Wargames models, that's where you want to be. I think Nick and I have an aesthetic to our Wargames models because we've been at it a long time and we wanted them to look. He always used to say that he likes, when we were talking like what after designing the Janissaries, the Turks, all those years ago, they've been some of our most popular selling units over the years, and you sold thousands of those. He always wanted them to look like they're rolling, like every man is different. Whereas if it's not a criticism of the 3D sculpt, but if you import a mannequin into a 3D sculpt, his shoulders will be square, and the body will be perfectly proportioned, and not necessarily is bland. And if you copy and paste that 10 times, the whole line will look computerally bland. And Nick makes an effort not. Yeah, I said a lot of that is him deciding he wanted units that didn't look square.
Yes,
a lot of if you go back and look at days of yore, we used to go to the Sheffield Triples and watch them playing great big games of WRG 6, and they'd all have this same Essex 28mm pikeman. And once you'd seen 96, or however many of them was at this unit, they kind of robotically, in a unit, square, all the shoulders are the same, and people aren't like that. And Nick definitely wanted units that, I said the word was roll, he wanted them to look like they were rolling. And I think he achieves it a great deal, especially in the more irregular units. Those Janissaries and Cossacks and Haiduks and things we were talking about earlier. They definitely
they've got something to them. They've got something to them, and I really like that. And as we mentioned a couple of times, if you've got some of your figures and you've painted them up, you have a gallery on your website that you love people to send stuff in and post up pictures of their stuff. So how do people do that then? Do they just go on the website and upload a photograph?
Yeah. It's become increasingly easy over the years. I mean, I've been doing it for virtually as long as Tags had a website.
Wow.
I've been trying to get so that's it's from about 2002, 2003. It was virtually unheard of, and the web people at the time would say, "Oh my God, don't send anything bigger than 350 pixels in any direction. We can't cope with it. And now I try and upload those photographs from 20 years ago, and the thing just laughs at me. You can't upload things under 350 pixels anymore. Too small. I have to say it is. So yeah, there's a tab that says gallery, and if you go gallery and upload photographs, I think you have to have an account first.
Yeah, I think you do. Yeah.
First, yeah, you just click it. And they all go into a bin at my end, so I just have a look over them to make sure you're not posting anything untoward. And then I put them live, and we'll get points with your reward points thing, which I'm brilliant. You get a quiz for everyone you want to post up. And some people, some professional painters will upload 20, 30 photographs of the unit. Here to see Darryl.
Yes.
Darryl Hindley.
Yeah.
Great painter.
Very good.
Great painter.
Very good.
We'll upload 30 photographs of the same unit, and I'll give you 30 quid or whatever it is, an equivalent, and then you'll go away and buy another unit or paint that, and maybe send, maybe do some of those pictures, or maybe there's somebody out there that's just bought a packet of Generals, or it was like in Scotland, and he came up to me and says, all I paint is flat.
Okay.
I only paint.
Yeah.
Right, fair enough. I only paint flat. I go away and do all the research, and I find out what I think they should be, and I paint them or paint them. And I like your range because you've got lots of standard bearers, and you've got lots of ranges that nobody else does. So I do lots of your flags, and you put some flags. I'll probably put 2 pictures in his flags, or you know what I mean? And it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I mean, in terms of internet relevancy, it's very good getting other people to add to your site. Google likes the fact that it's more than one person adding to it, and it's always then when you come back to it and there's a new link part of it, it forces back up the relevancy charts, so that if you type Hajduk 28mm, Google loves us because we've got lots of content based around that people at it. But I don't care pretty much. I just sort of see what people do. I mean, it's such a joy.
I think it's really nice to see a range of figures painted by a number of people. Very often you'll get a new range come out or a new set of figures come out, and it'll be painted by a professional painter, and you'll look at it and you'll, yeah, they're really nice then, but what about if Dave down the road paints them? What are they going to look like then? And I think with your website, you've got that broad range of people, and you can see what it will look like if you paint it.
I think it's true. I think that's true. I mean, the problem with tags started coming to the market just as the internet is taking off. 2001, the first crash has happened. The dot-com bubble burst. The technology is just starting, and the digital cameras at that point were just getting good. The 5 megapixel camera was a thing at this point. The 3 megapixel camera was a thing. And if you put yours or my painting in front of a 5 megapixel camera at a distance of 3 inches, it looks rubbish. And well, it does because we're human. Whereas these professional painters that we started using, we were several at the time, we've used a few since, and as I say, I use personally, they're on another level. They really are. They're on such another level. But that leads to the problem of what we saw for this was turd polish.
Right.
Whereas any turd can be polished very, very highly to the point it shines, and it looks great online under. And sometimes you see a range of miniatures and you think the painting is much better there than the miniature sculpting. That's not doing any favours. I was, again, coming back to Wildfire, and what kind of absolutely refused to even undercoat the models that were going on his display board because he was selling you, unpainted white lacquer. He wasn't selling you painted. He was selling you unpainted white lacquer. That's what you were buying. So you should get used to the fact that that's what it looks like on display. So, I know in the modern day and age, and the tax scams are testament to this. We don't put a fully painted image of every pack. We just scan everything using a black and white scanner. Hit and miss, and you're getting closer to that thing that's going to be arriving in the packing, not some highly polished, beautifully painted model done by a pro painter who's charged, 9, 15, 20 pounds a model and up. So there's a kind of honesty to that. But if you don't show them the top, if you don't show the best you can do, you're letting yourself down, aren't you? I mean, I don't paint well, but I can afford people to paint well for me. So,
I think there's pluses and minuses for both ways, but I think it's nice to see a range. It's nice to see the best possible, but it's also nice to see what Dave down the club's going to do as well. I like to see that with the two of them, because as you say, you can polish a turd, and I've had some figures that I've bought in the past where I thought, they look really nice, and then they've arrived and I've gone, what? It's not quite worked out for me. So,
the painter has really earned his money on them.
He certainly has. So we've been doing an hour and 10, so we've been going quite a while. So just to finish off, then we've talked about the website and the gallery, and then the other way that you sort of promote and sell, or one of the other ways you promote and sell your figures, is through wargame shows. And you seem to have done a little bit. Have you spread out your wings a little bit more, because you came to Fiasco up in Leeds 3 or 4 years ago? And how do you decide which shows to do and where to go?
This will be quite idiosyncratic for you then. Well, we didn't do any shows at all from inception. We did the first 3 years at Salute. As I say, I was working doing their Thingibot, the giveaway models. So I was getting trade space as compensation, and so we did the first 3 Salutes, 2002, 3, 4, something like that. The end of the old Olympia and the first one of the new XL one.
Yeah.
So I had kits. I got 2 kits, and working all day as a mold maker didn't leave the weekends free for me to go to wargame shows other than as a punter.
Yeah.
I would go and take stock and things for other people that were working. I was working for Vendel, so I'd quite often go to Partisan or whatever and take his stock across and have a day at the show and that kind of thing. But we didn't do the shows until about 10 years ago. And the very nice people at York invited me. Stuart Adams, he invited us there. Somebody dropped out at the last minute, and go on, we'll jump in. And since then, we were doing, I'll say 4 or 5 a year. And they would be the choice would be, where have I got relatives or friends that I am living near that I can go for a meal and sleep on the floor afterwards?
Yeah, good idea.
Well, as I said, this leads to quite an idiosyncratic choice of shows. So I've seen it in Norwich, where I do have lovely relatives, and we went there for the better part of 10 years, and it's an amazing show, like no other in the finance thing. And we did yours, Leeds, a couple of years. And I really like Leeds as a city. Because the advantage of Leeds is that brilliant with the arm running across the road. It's such a what a venue to have. Just as a resource, just excellent. So I tended to go to shows where we got a reason to be there. We go to Edinburgh for a couple of 3 years because I've got I work for Alternative Armies. Matt Cox said he's now living in Scotland, so I just go up there and have a beer with Matt and chew the fat and whatever else, and then do the show on the Sunday. I did St Helens because my sister lived there for a while. Is this what it's like?
Yeah,
I go to Orpington.
Yeah,
I go to Orpington because everybody said it's a great show and you need to sleep over and camp and things. And so I was doing it for the experience. Antwerp. Do you want to go to Belgium and drink beer for the weekend? Yes. Yes, that's I'll answer in the positive, yes.
Yeah.
And so as an opportunity to go and see the wargaming shows, having a company that makes its own stuff, has its own unique IP and its own unique lines, means that if I want to come to a wargame show, the organisers, as often as not, are really pleased to see me because I'm not bringing the latest plastic box sets piled high. That I'm going to be competing with the 2 or 3 other blokes that are in the store, in the show, selling the same things. So I'm kind of a neutral kind of attendee in that sense. I'm not taking money out of the people's pockets. In fact, maybe 1 or 2 people come to a show because fag are there.
Yeah.
So
it's very helpful when the vendor can bring the box to your table.
If you place an order and you haven't got time to get away from your huge game, then I'll answer. I mean, the beauty of it is that lots of wargame shows go sort of quiet of an afternoon. Normally, when you get to 2 o'clock time, there's the rush has gone out of the day, and I get to have a wander around and see so much of the stuff that it's always great to wander around shows and see what people are gaming on. It's not, 90% of it I wouldn't dream of ever getting involved in, but enthusiasm wins, and look at what you lot have done.
Yeah, no, it's always good to see you at a show wandering around, I have to say.
I've knocked off a little bit this year. We've not booked something this year. I had a bit of a bad year last year, and I've decided to take a bit of a year out from the shows this year. So literally, I did, what's it called? Oh, I've forgotten the name. It's the Hammerhead. Hammerhead?
Yes, I saw you at Hammerhead. Yes, yeah. We briefly shook hands and passed in the night as I was rushing somewhere.
So I did Hammerhead as a trader.
Yeah.
I did Salute this year, and again saw you in passing as a punter.
Right. I thought you had a stand. You see, I didn't get a chance to go around at all to look at anything, so I didn't know whether you were trading or just visiting.
No, I was just there as a punter. I'd got a customer that was going to come and pick up a load of stuff. He was Czech, and so it made sense for me to bring a load of stuff with me. I've got a long-term friendship with Ben Brownlee, who always does the Badger and Bunnies political games.
Burrows and Badges, is it? I can't remember. Yeah.
No, that's that Oath Swarm.
Right, that's another one.
It's another line.
I'm not well up on the Badger front.
No, well, I can't remember why they're called Bunny and Badger, but they are. But they do political games. I don't do politics.
Yeah.
And so they did the Brexit game and the Trump game.
Right,
and all these things. Modelling's brilliant. Modelling's brilliant, but all the politics stuff makes me kind of cold. I don't know what what's going on. But so I kind of had a wander down to see him and 1 or 2 other people that I know, and Salute's astonishing place. I mean, a lot of people just kind of want to bring it down, but
no, I like it. I've enjoyed the last 2 or 3 years when I've been. I've really, really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed putting a game on this year. And I should be back next year with something. We don't know what yet. So final question from me then, Pete. What's the future plans with the company? What's TAG going to be like in the future?
I don't know, actually, to tell you the truth. For the first time in 20-something years, I have no idea what the future for tag actually is. As I say, I've got about 20 packets of Renaissance miniatures that are finished and on commission to finish. And then my oppo, Steve, who is the other half, isn't very well. And in all honesty, I think he probably would want to sell and cash in, get out, and take his money and go. And so that either leaves me needing to find another sugar daddy, or somebody to work alongside, or me moving on my half of the business at the same time and giving up on it. And I, quite honestly, short of 18 months worth of work finishing what I've got, I can't tell you what the future holds at all.
Well, I think you put a lot into it, so hopefully you can keep it going in some way, shape, or form. I think there would be a few people out there who might be happy to come in with you. You never know.
I think there will probably be more people willing to take it off our hands than willing to work with me. It's not. The thing about owning a toy soldier company is, you own a toy soldier company and you want to do what you want to do, and you want to make the miniatures you want to make. Whereas if you're tied to tag to an extent, who's going to want to make what I want to make next? I mean, because quite frankly, if you could get pretty damn obscure if you leave me to make Renaissance miniatures for the rest of forever.
Yeah.
I've got a list of approximately 110 more packets that I could do.
Yeah.
If things went correctly, but as I sit here now, I have no idea, to tell you the truth.
Oh, watch this space. Watch this space.
Yeah, I mean, get them now, because they may not be around in a while.
You can always do another pack of Swiss pikemen.
Can I? Swiss?
You can never have enough Swiss. Never have enough.
We don't do any. We don't do Swiss for the early period.
There you go. There's another 10 packets straight away.
Yeah, it is. But unfortunately, there's 10 packets that Artisan and Steel Fist have already got covered.
Ah, right. Okay. I'll see where you're coming from.
Oh, and Found.
I see where you're coming from. So thanks very much for your time today, Pete. I always leave.
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, mate. I always leave my guest a chance at the end to ask me a question, because I've battered you for over 3 hours. If you haven't got one, I'll walk away a happy man. But if you have, I'll answer it.
What drives you to do such large units, battles, armies? Why, as an army list ticker, right? Go on. I would have got to my whatever army list, and it would have said 24 to 72 late Roman legionaries, whatever. Why will you get to that 24 to 72? Do you suddenly decide that means 72 to 240?
The bit, going back to that gamer collector historian kind of thing that we were talking about earlier on, for me, the visual aspect of the hobby is what drives me, more than the gaming side of it. I quite happily set one of my armies up and just sit there. It sounds quite sad, really. I just sit there and look at it. Yeah, march past troops on parade. It's one of my YouTube features. I imagine what an army would look like in my head and build towards that army. And I always work from historical orders of battle where I can. So the latest project I'm doing, 28mm Napoleonics, I'm building both sides for Plantamoir. But with the Italian Wars, I'm just building. I finish a box, and then I think, I could do with another box of Spanish,
No,
or
no, no. I'll have another
I'll have
box.
another box. I'll have another box of them. So that's the drive, mate. That's why I always go big. It's because I like the look of those big units, and
Okay. It's
and
just
I'm quite
visual,
happy to
visual
invest the
effect
time.
increases with size.
Yeah, yeah, keeps me happy. And as my missus says, as my wife says, it stops you going down the pub with the loose women.
Little
Yeah,
machine.
exactly. Well, thanks very much, mate. And
I really enjoyed it, and I've really enjoyed it. And thanks
thank you.
very
Yeah,
much.
thanks very much
You
for
know,
spending all this time talking to us about toy soldiers. It's
been a
much
delight,
appreciated.
my friend. And if you ever want again to talk,
So time to say good night to the audience,
good night to you.
and good night to him. See you later.
Cheers.
There we go. That was a bit of a monster. 3 hours 24 so far, plus this little bit at the end. So thank you very much for staying this long. I know people listen to these while they're painting, etc. And I've talked about this before. I really don't care how long they are. If I'm enjoying it and the guest is enjoying it, then we're going to keep talking. And you guys and girls out there, you keep listening. So we must be doing something right after 59 episodes where we're still getting lots of people listening and more people tuning in to every episode. So thank you very much for listening. If you do get a chance to leave a review anywhere where you listen to this, I'd be really grateful. I don't ask for money. We spoke about cost earlier on, but 30 seconds of your time just to put a nice review somewhere, or to leave a comment, or just interact with the podcast. It really helps increasing the profile and bringing more people on board to listen. So, the next episode is going to be the Brews in the Binyard Summer Special, and hopefully, I am going to be recording that tonight, and it will be with a full house. I'm hoping to have Alex Sutherland and Ian McDonald, who were on the Christmas show, and fingers crossed, Sean Clark's going to be back, and it'll be lovely to chat to him. I think it's a year since he last did one, and it'll be good to see where he is in his War Games world. So, don't forget to tune into the World Cup of War Games manufacturers. The draw for that's going to be tonight, so I'm going to release the draw section of the podcast as soon as I possibly can, and then the main podcast I'll release hopefully a week on Wednesday. I always like to give a little breathing space between shows, so you've got time to listen to this one. Most people are going to take this in one, maybe two chunks. So we won't be away for long. 10 days. We'll be back with Brews in the Binyard. So until then, see thee.